Welcome to the 39th episode of Chatting with Nuts with my very special guest tonight, you. Yes, the very terrible thumbnail I made was you, all of you in the chat. And I wanted to do something a little bit different for this episode because I've been feeling like I need to add a little bit of variety to this. And I'll kind of elaborate on that in a little bit, but I would just like to say this is also kind of debuting the new live setup, which my goal has always been to open the show in a way where my streams and my normal videos are very hard to decipher which is which. So you'll notice now that the stream should be in higher quality. This is going to be a 1080p stream now, and I'm actually using the camera and microphone that I use for my normal videos as well. Always trying to upgrade things and keep things fresh and exciting for everyone viewing. I want to give everyone here tonight and all those watching after my deepest appreciation and thanks. This channel has been more than just something fun to do. It has been a safe haven for me. It has also been an outlet for me, and the community that has been built around it, quite honestly, has changed my life. So I want to thank all of you so much for tuning in every single episode and watching my videos and all that stuff. And this is something different. It's something different because there's a lot of conversation pieces out there on BookTube now. There are a lot of people doing it, and I think it's awesome. But with that, I also always enjoyed chatting with Nuts because I kind of felt like it was something that you could come here for, and that you would only get that at this place, at this time, on this night. And while that's still going to continue happening, I'm still going to have guests on. This Chatting with Nuts is an experiment to see how well we can do with you being the guest, with me taking the chat, answering questions, bringing up topics, maybe even doing some polls. And I want to make this Chatting with Nuts segment maybe name something different, like make it different. And I think I'm going to be going with the Discord nominated name of Nuts After Dark. So these Chatting with Nuts will be considered Nuts After Dark. I think that they'll be happening occasionally. I don't think it'll be the mainstay for this. So don't worry if you're missing the conversation piece with another guest. That is still going to be happening. It's just with the crowd, or I should say the sphere becoming more crowded with long form conversations. I know that, having the same guest in and out and all these things, maybe you want a little bit of variance. And this is a better way also for me to relay some of my opinions, because a lot of times I end up asking a lot of questions and letting my guests speak because I want to pick their brains. That's why I have people on. Even Alan, after 85 times being on the show, I still have questions I haven't got to ask Alan yet. And I love that so much. But this is a way of me being able to communicate with you directly. And maybe you have some questions and I miss it in chat because, believe it or not, holding a conversation with a guest and then curating the chat is pretty difficult. And sometimes you don't want to derail the live conversation, so you can't answer all the questions. So this is a way more of a one-on-one way of connecting with you guys, and I'm excited about this. There's something about being alone on these that can be a little nerving. There's no headset, there's no noise. I was listening to King Von and Lil Durk before I came in here, which is absolutely absurd to be listening to drill music before you come and talk about fantasy, but that's just who I am. I'm a weird guy. So great to see all the usual suspects here in the chat. If you've been watching my House of the Dragon recaps weekly, you probably saw this set up earlier this week. It's been kind of my experimental ground for doing solo shows. And to be honest with you, the House of the Dragon streams are not the most popular thing on my channel, but they have really opened my eyes to how fun this can be in this format. And I want to give a big shout out to people who've been joining me weekly on those and, kind of making me realize that this could work. So I'm very, very excited. ADF says, finally going to catch a stream while it's live. Well, I'm glad to have you here. Chad Andrew says, getting to enjoy a live episode. Let's go. Alan says he is variety. He has never been on the show. I don't think so. Brent says, it's about time I was a guest on the show. Brent, I agree, my friend. I agree. We could talk about Baker for 3 hours and not get tired of it, I assume. How has Alan never been on the show? Well, my next guest in 2 weeks will be Alan, because Alan messaged me and said it's time. So Alan has a free pass. And I know I jokingly say that he's the semi-permanent co-host of Chatting with Nuts, but that's not a joke anymore. It's true. If Alan was available every single time, we would do it, and maybe even have a third guest. And I let Alan ask some questions. I think that would be really interesting, right? Did you finally have every booktuber on the channel? No, I did not, Caitlin. And there's a lot of people I still want to bring on. There's a lot of ideas that I have about even possibly groups or different segments where I split episodes between two guests, one-on-one. A lot of different stuff that I have kind of in my head that it has to sit in the oven for a little bit more before I go live with it. But with that said, I'm not going to lie, not having to do the scheduling and not having to worry about my social anxiety like flaring up, this kind of this is the remedy for that. I didn't have to worry about if the time worked, if I was going to go too long. Like, there's no restriction. It's just me, right? So taking away that piece of the stress makes this even a little bit more fun. Though obviously I still love having guests on the channel. Lighting looks good, Jimmy. Thank you. Yes, you guys should be able to tune into this stream at 1080p so you can see my high hairline and mediocre glasses in full HD now. Noel says, wait, what's going on? What's up, Matt? Good to see you guys. And yes, I will be behind on the chat because I'm going to be trying to go through each and every question that I get. If I don't answer your question, there's probably a reason. I may have just missed it, but most likely it's either something I don't want to give away on a stream because I'm going to be considering doing a video on it. Like if you ask me my top 10 fantasy series of all time, I'm not going to answer that because that's a video I have not done. And it's been almost 3 years. And there's a reason for that. It's because like I want to read more series before I make that list, or even books, right? Here's a question. As I go through this chat and I kind of catch up with what you all are saying, I would love to know, what is more intriguing as a viewer, a top 10 fantasy series of all time or a top 10 books of all time with like one per author? Because if I had to do top 10 books, there's a lot of non-fantasy that would probably make it into that top 10 list for sure. Stoner is what I'm immediately thinking of. ADF said, wow, it's weird to listen to you on 1x speed. Don't worry. I watch every booktube video, pretty much every media that I consume other than like the technical stuff I do for work at a 2x speed, just like how my brain defaults now. What's up, Garrick? What's up, Stuart? It's good to see y'all. Komodo, everyone. Yes, Kev says, yeah, Nuts After Dark, baby. Yeah, I have to give it up for my my patron Discord. They're the ones who nominated the name Nuts After Dark, and it was it was too good not to do. So maybe these will be continued to be called Chatting with Nuts, or maybe I'll just call it Nuts After Dark and it'll be its own thing. But I'm going to try to do at least one of these solo streams a month now. It's nice that my name now is a positive, because middle school was hell. Let me tell you. Keep turning the page or else. You know, I'm just saying, whenever I dropped that in my last video, it told me who actually watches my videos all the way to the end. And I really genuinely appreciate those who do. If you haven't checked it, I had a Lies of Locklemore review this past week. I think it's one of my favorite reviews I've done because I just got to dive into the writing of it. And the more that I learn about this craft, the more that I like talking about it. And Scott Lynch is a great example of a lot of the things that work for me as a reader. So even though The Lies of Locklemore isn't like a top 10 story of all time for me, it was like one of my favorite books to review. I also felt that way about Ninth Reign by Jen Williams, even though I didn't necessarily love that book. In fact, I would say I'm mostly positive on that book. It was like a lot of fun just to talk about. There's certain books, and if you review books, even if it's a written review or whatever it might be, you'll know that sometimes the books that you're really conflicted on are the most fun to sit down and try to pick apart and to try to relay your feelings. And some books, it's impossible to describe how you feel about them. In a lot of ways, I feel as if it's hard to explain everything that I love about R. Scott Baker's work. I have a really hard time putting into words why it clicks with me so much. And then I end up just reverting back to like, it's just made for me, which is a bit of a cop out. But at some point you just have to let it go and just say, I just liked it. It is what it is. Right. Fantasy Network is on. What's up, Matt? It's good to see you, man. Chat is rolling tonight. I'll tell you what, it was a beautiful day out, and all day at work, I just kept thinking about this, because whenever I do something for the first time here on the channel, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but also it's exciting. And I knew a lot of people were probably going to be confused tuning into this, because not everybody looks at the community tab. I announced that it was going to be a solo show, and obviously not everyone's in the Discord. So for me, I was like, man, there's going to be a lot of people who tune in and are like, where's the guest? So I'm glad that you all are here and you didn't just run away immediately. This is absolutely a experimental type thing. So the more support and the more feedback I can get is always welcomed. What's up, Nick? Yeah, I think the difference between doing something solo and having a conversation, and I think other people who do streams can attest to this. Sometimes you forget about that there's like 99 people, 100 people watching, right? You're just having the conversation, and then at the end, you're like, what in the world? Did I say anything terrible? What is in the works for the eventual 10K sub special? It's a good question. I kind of would love to hear maybe some ideas from you all. This is a good opportunity to get some live feedback. And if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to drop a comment. But we are closing in at 9,800 subs, probably by the end of this month. And I think by the end of the year, or a little bit into the new year, I will be hopefully hitting 10,000 subs, which is astounding. I'm very humbled that anyone tunes in to hear my opinions at all. So I appreciate it. But yeah, I don't know. I really like doing the 5K subs with my wife. I thought that was a lot of fun. She sat down and we took questions. And, you know, my wife does read fantasy. She's in the middle of Mad Ship by Robin Hobb right now, and she's really enjoying it. But she's read some other stuff, including Sarah J. Maas, which she could be roasted for, I'm sure. But yeah, maybe something with Mrs. Nuts again. I think that could be a lot of fun. Maybe I'll bring in the two lions that I call cats. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything different, or if I'll just keep it to a simple Q&A. I try to keep things as basic as possible here, because then I don't feel as overwhelmed whenever I'm having to create the content. I want to just keep this as like down to earth as possible. Jimmy, let's have a BJJ chat. I would do that in a heartbeat, Theo. I'm really in on BJJ right now. Like it's like reading. You go through slumps, you go through peaks where like it's all you want to do. And right now I'm like on the peak of jiu-jitsu. My body's not agreeing with me. I think I broke my middle knuckle here. It's all swollen. Try to catch a low kick and it just popped. But yeah, I'm pretty into BJJ right now. Having a good time. It's like, look, guys, I don't care if there's a code blue. They'll just have to wait. I'm trying to watch the Fantasy Network. And if you're wondering, Super Games Bros works at a hospital, and I think Code Blue is pretty serious. So, you know, he has his priorities straight. I'll tell you that. Alex, you're welcome on anytime, my friend. I want to watch the House of the Dragon live streams. I'm only episode 5. Well, they'll be there for you whenever you're ready. I think that they actually are pretty fun to watch after the fact, I would hope. I have been doing like screen sharing and showing screenshots and like trying to keep it to actual topics while also talking to chat, kind of like what I'm doing right now. I will say it's a little easier to do that with House of the Dragon because only like 40 people show up to those, and this has over 100. So it's a little harder to keep up. And again, I am going to be behind on chat. So if I don't get to your question immediately, I'll eventually get to it. Your guest this week, me, just won his iRacing race. Congratulate me. Congratulations. I won the Retro Bowl on my Nintendo Switch today. So please congratulate me. And let me tell you something. Retro Bowl is so addicting. It's ruining my life. Shutdown SETI, which is a wild name, says my new job has completely changed my sleep schedule, meaning I'm awake and ready to catch these live shows. Yeah, it's interesting because like I know there's some people who work different schedules and they shift and all this other stuff, and it's like the meta of the crowd changes as Chatting with Nuts goes along. And it's insane to me that I've been doing this for like 2 years now, and there's people who have been, I can say confidently, have been at all 39 episodes of Chatting with Nuts, which is just wild. Throw a surprise third guest for episode 40. I think episode 50 of Chatting with Nuts, I'm going to try to do something bigger. I won't say huge, but bigger, right? I will pray that Jimmy Allen weekly talks happen. They are my favorites. I love talking to Alan. Like genuinely, aside from like just the fact that, you know, Alan is extraordinarily entertaining, I have so much love for Alan. he has become one of my very best friends, and that's why he's on the channel constantly. And I have a lot of really great friends, but I have like a level of closeness to Alan. You know, like we talk about a lot of stuff that isn't books, and I get to kind of be really raw with a lot of my reactions there because surprisingly, I'm not always the most logical person. So I feel like I can always go to Alan and get things off my chest, and I don't get judged for it because Alan will get things off his chest in front of all of you and 120 people. And I can't thank him enough for that. So you're not the only person who loves having Alan on. I do too, clearly, right? Need to get brothers Gwyn on here sometime. Yeah, I do. The brothers Gwyn are in that later time zone. So it's one of those things where I'll probably have to do it on a Saturday, and which is fine. And I will. I did that with Patrick. I've done it with other Raph. I brought Raph on a Saturday. I try to space those episodes out because I really want to own that 7:30 p.m. Eastern Friday night slot. Not like own from other people, but I mean, like, I want people to know, hey, every other Friday, like if I go to the Fantasy Network, he's there. So for those special day and time episodes, I really try to make them like once to twice a quarter. That's how much I think ahead on these type of things. And it just has to be the right pacing. I also try to, like, you know, if it isn't Alan, I try to like think about what the guests are going to talk about. And I try not to have someone back to back that is going to be centered around like the same series. So like a Malazan person like Philip Chase and Andy Smith, I would like to have some gap between those two because I know, you know, I try to be conscious of the listening experience or the watching experience if you're here live. And that is so, so important to me because, you know, I am a fan of content. I am someone that watches a lot of YouTube, and I know what I find to be grating or tiresome in a podcast or on a YouTube channel. So I'm constantly thinking about audio quality. I'm constantly thinking about video quality. I'm always thinking about the actual content of the stream and what you're hearing. And unfortunately, there's some things you can't account for, right? Sometimes the internet goes down. Sometimes I repeat myself constantly. But aside from that, the controllables of this thing, I try to keep it as tight as possible because I want people to enjoy their time. The fact that these go on 2-3 hours sometimes, I don't take that lightly. Like, you're giving me time out of your life and out of your day. So I want to make sure that it's the highest quality possible. And that's why I said the dream will always be, and if this thing gets any bigger, you know, it could be a reality, is that maybe Chatting with Nuts becomes an in-person thing where I have the person sitting next to me here and we change the setup. I even have a set in mind for this. I bought this house because it had a spot that I was like, there's where I could have an in-person conversation. It's one of the reasons why I bought my house. So that's the goal. The goal was to increase the quality time and time again. And I know some people say, well, we don't care about that, but it does go a long way. And it's just my way of kind of thanking you and appreciating the fact that that you're here, that you're listening. Lewis says, or is it Luis? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. It says, how good is Vinland Saga? Vinland Saga is very good. I thought the fourth omnibus book was insane. Probably my favorite manga volume I've ever read. Maybe it's up there. And now I started the farm arc, which is surprisingly entertaining, very slice of life-esque, and a different kind of pace than the first arc, but I still really, really like it. My problem with Vinland Saga is it feels like if I step away from it for more than a week, I don't come back to it as easy. Like, I always pick up something else over it. And that might be because Vikings aren't like my favorite thing in the world, but Vinland Saga is so good. And I think it was Daniel Green. I saw someone like it. It showed up on my Twitter feed. He said that, and maybe it wasn't him, I might be wrong, but somebody said that Vinland Saga is a great manga for people who don't think they'll like manga. And I agree with that. Like 100%. But I also think monsters are a really good way to go. But yeah, Vinland Saga is fantastic. And you can see the covers back here are outstanding. Like, if there's one thing I love, it's having manga on my shelf. Stream looks good. Thank you, Brent. I appreciate it. Does Vinland Saga beat Berserk for you? Is that why you have displayed it in the back? No, I haven't displayed it back because I love the covers and they're really easy. And honestly, I didn't feel like hauling all the other books up here. And no, I like Berserk more than Vinland Saga, personally. Faisal says, I always, is it Faisal? Tell me in the chat. How have you been enjoying Kings of Paradise? Kings of Paradise, one, beautiful cover, and has like the best first line that I've read this year, I think. The first line is, Ruka stared at the corpse of the boy he'd killed, and his stomach growled. Ruka stared at the corpse of the boy he'd killed, and his stomach growled. How do you not immediately just tear through this thing. I've only read 2 chapters because I started it while I was still finishing up my current reads, but after 2 chapters, I'm really enjoying it. A little too early to start the heaps of praise, but I can see why people like Philip Chase and many others have pointed to this and said, "Hey, Jimmy, you would like this," and have really put it up there with a lot of other people. The fact that it's self-pub is crazy because I felt like the first chapter, especially, did not feel like self-pub at all, which most good self-pub feels that way, anyways. But I'm excited to see how it goes as I get further into the book, because that's where things can sometimes come at the seams whenever you don't have like a developmental editor or whatever else it might be. And I guess I should also say, me and Alan have talked about this before, but I do judge self-pub a little bit differently, for the fact that they don't have all the resources usually that a traditionally published author has. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think it's important to make a distinction whenever you're reviewing a self-pub book, is like where it stands. Some people get really offended by like saying, "Hey, this is such a good self-pub book. It reminds me of a traditionally published book." But really what that means is that it feels like it's been edited properly. Maybe even the cover art can suggest those type of things, because I'll be honest, I forgot that this wasn't traditionally published. In fact, I have no idea how it isn't. Even after 2 chapters, I'm just like, this premise is interesting. And clearly he has a whole trilogy written. So it surprised me it hasn't been picked up. Or maybe it has and I'm wrong. So I'm getting to the part in chat where I ask people if they would rather have top 10 books or fantasy, and already people are split. Stuart asked me, "Okay, how long until you feel like you've read enough to do a top 10? I should have a top 10 fantasy series video within the next 6 months to a year, I would say, because there's 2 other big series that I want to get to. It seems like books, though, are easily winning this poll. Some people are interested in series, but a lot of people are also interested in books. Stuart says, "Why choose a top 10? Just do both." Well, I would, but I'm just curious of what people would want more, because this isn't one of those things that I would do back to back. Like I would do one and then wait 6 months and then do the other, just to kind of give that room to breathe, because there is going to be overlap between books and series. And to me, like hearing me rehash this stuff, like, do you really want to hear me talk about George R.R. Martin anymore? Really? Brent says top 10 series. The answer is both, right? Like the people are saying both for sure. Alan says, "I think it should always be one per author." Yeah, it has to be, because like for me, then the top like 7 are going to go to George, and that's not interesting to watch, right? There's also like something about like judging a series against itself. Like everyone always makes jokes, and I make jokes about how the fact that I gave a Game of Thrones 4 stars when I reviewed it here on the channel was my first review ever. But the reason why is because I was comparing it to A Storm of Swords. But if I look at a Game of Thrones as a book outside of its series and just what it is, I would give it a 5. So it's one of those things like you kind of flow in and out of that, right? And I've tried to be more hardcore about just rating it what I think it is, right? Don't overthink it. Keep it simple, stupid, right? KISS, as the people say. I prefer books. I love seeing fantasy booktubers step out of the fantasy bubble. More lit-fic discussion. Jimmy Nuts, Ulysses review. When? I'm not sure when, but I have always wanted to read that. What's your favorite Name of the Wind character, and will you read Wise Man's Fear? Yes, I will read Wise Man's Fear. And my favorite character from Name of the Wind, I mean, I know it's kind of a cop-out, but Kavoth, however you say it, everyone shouldn't say everybody. A couple people were not pleased that I didn't pronounce his name properly. And to that, I say, I don't pronounce anything properly. It's not my forte. You should watch the manga discussions. I just butcher it. Like we've done so many episodes of Dudes Talking Manga here on the channel, and I think the first 20 are people just giving me pronunciation guides to Berserk. I really do. Cool. So Nuts is your real last name. Nuts is kind of my real last name. We'll put it at that. My 7-year-old just asked me if your name is really Nuts. House of the Hawk says, "Just finished A Storm of Swords for the first time. What an absolute banger of a book. I can totally see why it's your favorite book of all time." Yeah, it is kind of the basic fantasy answer to say that it's your favorite book of all time. Like a lot of people say it, but It just is. And it was before I knew that everyone else kind of considered it to be that. You know what I mean? I wasn't active in this community. Reading was an individual experience at that point, and I just knew that I stood up when I was reading it. And when you stand up when you read a book, that's how you know it's good. I think Christian from Lost in Discovery is the one who coined that. Standing. He said he stood up when he read Words of Radiance, and that's when he knew that that was his goat. In middle school, you didn't say D's. Not, I got called a lot worse than that. So, can you give us a 2023 preview or plans of what you will be reading? Yeah. So I'll keep this short because that's one of my favorite videos to make. Is like my top 8 things I want to read, and sometimes it's a series, sometimes it's a book. But the things I can say for sure, even if I might even try to start them this year before the end, but it's not guaranteed. I absolutely want to read Black Company by Glenn Cook. In fact, I think that's the one that's calling to me the most. And Long Price Quartet is 100% on that list. And then I would really like to do A Crown of Stars by Kate Elliott. Is that the right name for that series? I always forget what it's called, but I have book 1. I love the cover. It's very old school, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. Actually, Edgar, you're the one who's actually kind of told me about it. And I got some other stuff that I am blanking on. Of course, I want to read more Cormac McCarthy. I've been kind of putting off Blood Meridian for a rainy day. And that is definitely one. That's an author I'll probably read most of his works, if not all. So, the old dirty bastard. What's some of your favorite world building in Perdido? I honestly just love the fact that there's like half human animal hybrids. Yeah. I like the one character, I'm talking about. I just imagine being Big Bird. And to me, that's hilarious. What do you mean a Dolo show? You said it features me. No rotating guests from chat. The Bee's Knee says, I really like the House of the Dragon streams that are solo, but I don't know diddly squat about Game of Thrones, so it's nice to have a solo stream about general stuff. I think you do a great job. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The cool thing about the House of the Dragon streams is that I learned during those as well. Chris Bookish Cauldron came in and corrected me in the comments about one of my assumptions about the ending of episode 8, and it totally changed the ending for me, and I actually got it wrong. So, those streams are also beneficial to me a lot of the time. Anitha, where's the guest? You are the guest tonight. 10K sub-special live Kingsguard hangout. That could possibly happen with restrictor plates and guardrails up. Mitch says, I am cooked, washed up, past my prime as a reader, feels bad. Hey, I felt that way about a month ago after I finished Second Apocalypse. I said, maybe it's over. Maybe it's over. Maybe time to roll out of the top 10 for 10,000. I do have some ideas that kind of exceed a top 10, but I don't know how I would do it. I thought about maybe doing a bigger number and then breaking it down into parts. I think that could be a lot of fun. It kind of reminds me of the iceberg videos that people do. Like Wendigoon did a conspiracy theory like iceberg, and he broke it up into like 9 parts. The whole thing's like 9 hours long, and I loved it. It was so much fun to fall asleep to every night. Hey, Philip. How's it going, man? I will never hit 10K subs, Jimmy. I will live vicariously through you. Alan, you are always welcome to live in my shadow, my friend. I'm just kidding. Hayden says, what are your cats' names, Jimmy? It's Denver and Dallas, but we generally call Dallas Dally Girl, and Denver is Nuggy Boy 3000. I don't know why we call him that, but we do. Kel says she loves Mad Chip. Brent says, was thinking about today about some stuff I want to tackle next year. What's your 2023 radar? Yeah, like I said, Black Company, Long Price Quartet, without a doubt, is up there. As far as a reread, I am definitely going to reread the First Law trilogy, the first one. I feel like the standalones in Age of Madness are still fresh in my mind, but I feel like I've forgotten a lot from the original First Law trilogy. So I'm going to be rereading those, and I'll be doing them on audio, which I did, I think the last book immersive when I read the trilogy, but I never got to experience the first 2 books with Pacey. So I'm going to do that next year. I'm trying to do like 1 to 2 rereads every year. Like this year, I finished up a Song of Ice and Fire reread, and I'm doing Lord of the Rings Hobbit, which has been fun. Wait, don't roast me. This is cool. Bernej says, it would be neat to see my favorite stories list more than a top 10, not necessarily limited to books, favorite music, children, if applicable. Yeah, I've thought about doing a formative video, like what has formed me as a reader. Sarah Reeds did a really cool thing where she did like when in her life she found a new favorite. So instead of doing like her favorite reads of all time in a top 10 fashion, she said like, first, this was my favorite, and then this became one of my favorites. And you can kind of see how a reviewer's taste or a YouTuber's taste has evolved over time, which I think is actually pretty important. Like what was happening in your life when it happened, what had you read until that point is also very, very important. For instance, I read The Faithful and Fallen by John Gwynne just as I was getting back into reading, and I absolutely love The Faithful and the Fallen, and I still do, because that experience that I had at that time was magnificent. Now, being removed from it, and I've had so many people, say, oh, it's actually not this good. It's full of tropes, all this stuff. And I'm like, that might be true for you. But at the time, I hadn't read all this other stuff. So for me, in my limited scope at that point, that's what I was reviewing on the channel. It's what I liked. And I stand by it. I loved it. I had a great time. And our subjective personal experience and mood and expectations and experience all ties in to how we find a series and how we review it. And if you're not doing that, I would venture to say that you're either doing some sort of scholarly work, but if you're here on BookTube and you're reviewing and like those things don't play into a mind of it, you're either way more intelligent than me, or you're missing some of that special sauce, because I like hearing like what has resonated with people over their time as readers. So I think Sarah's idea is fantastic, and I would love to do some sort of formative video of what has made me, because music is also really important, I think, to some of my taste as well. 8 other guests and my wife for the 10K. It'd be fun. Some Sarah J. Mass love in the chat. What has this become? Tall Guy Reed says, you're so close to 10K subs, man. Love this solo convo. Which review has been the hardest for you to do so far this year? So this year, that's a tough one. I think that the second Apocalypse live discussions, while being the most fun, have been very difficult to prepare for. I relate them very heavily to the Malazan stuff because it's so dense. So that would probably be it. And remember, I finished Malazan at the beginning of this year. So I would say between those two series, those live discussions, you got to come ready, because the fans are diehard, they're rabid, they know their stuff, and they expect you to also know your stuff. Now, there is a reputation when it comes to fandoms that they are always toxic or they're always mean. And I did not have that experience. I actually had a very uplifting experience with the Malazan crew and with the second Apocalypse crew. So even though they were very tough and I feel like I had to come ready, it was rewarding because I put in extra work. I took extra notes. I took time to prepare. I didn't mess around. I treated it like it was a real presentation and a job, because for some reason, I take this super serious. And, yeah, I would say those are probably the hardest to review, but also are the most rewarding. And those are the reads that are going to stick in my mind for a very, 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 very long time. And also, I think the second Apocalypse what a fandom, whatever we want to call it, like the crew that comes around and watches the videos and the subreddit and stuff, I think they're awesome, personally. Like I had a great time. How do I find your Discord? So my Discord is a patron perk, but I always tell people don't go to the Patreon just for the Discord. It's a side effect. The Patreon's just a support, and the Discord is just one of the ways that I can, give a perk. So I always try to tell people, don't do it just for the Discord. It should just be to support the thing, and it's just a cool byproduct of that. I got a few taped up fingers right now. I feel you. Yeah, talking about the knuckle. Yeah. Try to catch a low kick, maybe to go in for a single messing around, and I paid for it, unfortunately. Jimmy, I'll have you on for books and BJJ. Let's do it. You know what, Theo? You need to read the combat codes. Orbit just picked it up, so it's going to be re-released with a new edited full-out version from Alexander Darwin. You need to read that, and we should have a discussion and bring on Alexander Darwin, who is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and we could have a really cool time with that. Maybe mix up the communities, right? Stop using the acronym BJJ for the uninitiated. It just sounds hilarious to hear you say I enjoy BJJ. Don't we all? Don't we all? You think you'll ever read some classics like Crime and Punishment, War and Peace? Yes. Yes, I do. Oh, sorry. What is BJJ? No, BJJ, for those who don't know, is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a grappling martial art that is fairly effective, I would say. Yeah, Monte Cristo is definitely a book that I am going to read. I'm actually really, really excited about that. Nerdy Nikki, which is a cool name, says, would you ever ask for people to send you in pictures of their shells for you to roast? Because you and Alan doing that together would be hilarious. I wouldn't, just because like that's Daniel Green's thing. And when someone has like a hold on something like that, I don't like to retread. You know what I mean? Just yeah, I don't think I would, unfortunately. Though I do believe Alan would do a fantastic job of it. Michael, what's up, man? It says, good evening, Jimmy. Since I just started Game of Thrones, I watched your video last night on it. Loved all your Malazan and Farseer content. I'm glad you're diving into A Song of Ice and Fire. And, you know, hey, leave comments on there about your thoughts and stuff, because I check all of those as long as YouTube actually tells me. Lately, I've been having issues with my comments on YouTube. I don't know if any other creators have, which is very frustrating because I like to reply. So, Michael, when you're going through A Song of Ice and Fire and checking out the old videos, comment. We can still have dialogue. Just because I posted it a while ago doesn't mean that that I'm not down to talk about it. With that said, with the Game of Thrones, I'm good. But there are some books that like it's been a year, 2 years, and it's like I don't remember a lot from it. I went from 75 stars on Mario 64 to 77. Give me praise. I give you praise. Heard any good metal albums lately? That new Meshuggah is heavy AF. I have not. To be honest with you, I listen to so much less music than I used to. And when I do listen to music, it's almost exclusively drill music, drill rap. And is to get hyped up and just out of my mind while I work out. And then that's pretty much it. Daniel Dilla says, are you watching Rings of Power? I gave up, I think, at episode 3. Maybe 4. I can't really remember. And when I say gave up, it's just like something that I wasn't willing to set apart an hour of my time. And I'm going to be honest, one of the biggest reasons is the fact that it isn't one that I could catch live because I don't stay up to midnight because I'm an old man. And me and my wife were actually talking about this because she actually watched past where I did because she wanted to love the show. And the fact that it isn't, like, for instance, if it was Thursday at 9, I don't have a lot going on at Thursday at 9 o'clock. I would have probably watched every episode. But for it to come on at midnight and then Fridays, obviously I'm doing this, I'm doing other stuff. Am I going to find time on my weekend? Like, am I really going to do an hour, especially for a show that I wasn't sold on in the first 3 episodes? That's a tall task for me. I don't like watching television that much. I'm very selective with what I do. I like to read. That's what it comes down to. In some ways, it's a problem because, you know, a lot of your friends at work or wherever it might be, you know, most people watch TV, most people watch movies or play video games. And I just don't do a lot of that anymore, which is probably why I stream all the time, which is probably why I make these videos, because this is what I do. This is what we do. This is my sphere. I enjoy reading. It's not that I had to force myself to pick up a book instead of watching a movie. You know, if I want to watch a movie, I'll watch it, but I just like reading. So Rings of Power not being at a good time debut wise, where I can like sit down and do the damn thing, really hurts it just for me as a viewer. I wish that it was like Thursdays at 9, even 10 o'clock. I would probably have been okay with it. Books of Genghis Khan says, finished the Winter King today. Need more Merlin. That character is incredible. Yeah, if I ever did a top characters list, Merlin would have to be at the very least an honorable mention, but probably make a top 10. He's just a hilarious character in those books, man. Also, the British Dark Ages feels like it's not our Earth. Yeah, for sure. It feels like a different time period. I will say this, and this is, I guess, a hot take, but I think Winter King is the worst of the 3, personally, even though the Isle of Death or whatever is tremendous. One of the best like scene settings ever. But I thought book 2 and 3 were far superior to Winter King. In fact, like when people tell me they read Winter King and they find it to be like, I can get it. I really liked it, but it's nothing, in my opinion, compared to especially book 2. So. Which series would you most like to see adapted? Faithful and the Fallen on HBO would be mine. I think Perdido's Street Station has to be up there for animated. Or I'm not animated. I'm sorry, for adaptation. Man, there was damn it. There was I read something recently, maybe it was Perdido, and I was like, anytime I get asked about what should be adapted, this is now my new answer. And I was like, and it's not like your typical answer. And I can't remember what the hell it was now. It's not R. Scott Baker. I actually think the second Apocalypse would only work if it was like an extraordinarily grim like animation style, because they couldn't show some of that stuff on any television station. Faithful Fall could be cool, but I think Perdido Street Station. I think it's different enough, and it could be really, really wild. Andy Smith, what's up, Andy? Says, can I be on with Alan so we can just make fun of him and then say nice things about him to make him feel awkward? We could arrange that, but I think Alan has made threats against your real estate. So, make sure you got the fire extinguisher handy. Ramus says, give it up to, I'm not sure how to say it, who have watched every episode live. Oh, Fanatics, I think is what he's saying. I'm happy if I manage to catch one live a month. Yeah, I know everyone's busy and, listen to this kind of stuff for 2-3 hours at a time. Like I said, I really appreciate it. That's why I'm always trying to do upgrades and everything else to make this as enjoyable as possible. So I like Andy's Alan impression. Yeah, it was pretty solid. Also, oh man, Alan was in his sprints the other night and he did this stoner impersonation from the book Stoner, a character, and he did it so well that it actually kind of scared me. He sounded so much like the audiobook. Alan is missing his calling as an audiobook narrator, without a doubt. Garrick says, the constant thought about video quality shows, Jimmy, we all appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, shoot. We need a Philip update on the darkness that comes before. I am very interested to see how Philip is going to react. I know for a fact that Joanna is loving it. She sent me a message about it, and she's picking up on all the right things. So that's great. Andy Plies, my boy Andrew, says, Vinland slaps. It sure does, you heartless bastard. Philip Chase says, I'm on the last 10 pages of The Darkness Comes Before, but I interrupted my reading to watch this. That's a mistake. You should finish that amazing book because the ending is really good. And then, by the way, Philip and whoever else is reading The Darkness Comes Before, after that, it's just like off to the races for sure. I started watching Vinland Saga on Netflix. I'm liking it so far. Yeah, I started watching the anime as well. It's one that I would like to go back and check out after I finish the whole thing. What's up, Baron? Good to see you, my friend. Jimmy, have you ever listened to or seen any musical? I mean, I was like forced to sit through them in high school and stuff. I do not like musicals, unless if it's Grease. I don't know why. I'm fine with Grease, but yeah, it's not my jam. Hello, Mama Nuts. I predict Alan will not like Madeline Miller's books. I predict that Alan will never read Madeline Miller's books. Andy and Alan would both like Sun Eater. I agree. Kind of crazy that I've read all of Sun Eater. It's wild. Hazel, but with an F, brother. Faisal. I think I said it correctly like a long time ago. I'm sorry. I don't see Alan liking Song of Achilles either. There's not a way. I'm glad, man, I'm so far behind in chat. I'm glad people enjoyed me reading that first line of Kings of Paradise by Richard Nell. It's awesome. Catherine Dobbs Roberts says, the Brothers Gwyn reference you, Patrick, and Alan all the time. Would be cool if you could all do it live. Not sure what the time zones would it be. I'll have them on, and it'll definitely be like a special like Saturday, because I don't like asking people to stay up super late. The only person that seems to do it, and I always feel bad, is a Critical Dragon AP. AP is always down to like smash like 4 Red Bulls and stay up to 4:30 a.m. And then we always, this is a little behind the scenes for Chatting with Nuts. So here's what happens. AP goes, listen, man, it's like 5 a.m. my time. We got to go. And I go, okay, not a problem. We'll cut the episode. So we cut the episode for all of you. And then AP will talk to me for another 2.5 hours after the stream. I'm like, we should have just kept going live, bro. It's like he gets a second wind after the live button gets turned off. I love AP. I always learn something talking to him. And he's a great storyteller. A lot of love for Vinland Saga. Yeah, Vinland Saga is one that I'm seeing out in like public. Like I was on a plane a couple months back and I remember looking over and someone was reading Vinland Saga and like didn't look like it was like an older gentleman. I was like, oh, it's interesting. I want to hear you talk Germ more. Top 10 underrated or forgotten. Not sure if I need to hear about Lord of the Rings or Martin again. Yeah, it's kind of hard to escape those, huh, Terry? I'm going to be reading more stuff that is back through the ages, like Moorcock and many, many others. I read The Dying Earth by Jack Vance this year. and Rogers the Lads and these Chronicles of Ambers. I'm on book 3. So there's other stuff, like especially things that kind of get lost in the sphere that we're in booktube or whatever you want to call it, that doesn't get enough recognition, I would say. Even somehow Ursula Le Guin is on that list. Like we don't talk about her enough. And if you watch my reviews, you know that I very much subscribe to her way of thinking when it comes to style and fantasy and prose and the approach to it and the fight back against commercialization of prose to make things more digestible. Not even more digestible, because her works are very digestible. It's not like heavy philosophical, purpley, all this stuff. Her stuff's actually, relatively easy to follow, in my opinion. It's just the fact that like there's a little something to the writing, and that the writing is as much a part of the work than anything else. The characters and all that. Style isn't something you add after the fact. It's not a topping. It's an ingredient. And I know Philip is nodding his head like that right now. Raymond says, I like me some good old-fashioned standalone. Sometimes seems hard to find these days when everything is a trilogy or more. Yeah, I've been trying to fill in the back half of this year with a ton of standalones, and I've been pretty successful, but I've definitely had to reach outside of the fantasy genre. Read some sci-fi, right? I read Banks, which the Culture series is something I need to get even more into because my one player of the games was tremendous. So standalones are hard, but they're out there. The Company by KJ Parker is one that I'd like to smash. Here in the next few months. Also, Between Two Fires is one that I want to see. Dookie Shoe says, have you heard of King's Dark Tidings series? I have a few criticisms, but it's a fun listen audiobook with Nick Podell. No, I have not, but anything by King I am willing to check out. Holy Hearted says, your pick behind you always reminds me of the Godspell album cover. That's pretty good. Asklad is a great character from Vinland Saga. I'm late. Saw myself in the thumbnail just now. Sorry. No problem, Tiago. The Dude's Talking Manga boys do struggle with pronunciation. We all butcher pronunciations. My favorite King book. Well, I am going to be finishing it in the next few days, and I was wondering if it would overtake 11/22/63. But I'll be honest with you, there's something magical about 11/22/63 that I think it's still 11/22/63, but it is really close behind it. And then like right behind that's Pet Sematary. Yeah. Commanda says, have you read Fever Dream by George R.R. Martin? I was surprised how much like I read it a few years ago. Yeah. 2 years ago, if you go back and watch I think it's 2020, right? Yeah. 2020 top 8 books or top 10 books of the year. Fever Dream was like number 9. Yeah. I think Fever Dream's an awesome book. It's my favorite vampire book. I like it more than, anything Salem's Lot or any of the other vampire stuff. Also not a huge vampire guy, to be honest. Oh man, I thought I was all caught up for a second. I want to give a big shout out to Spot Center, which is dope. Thank you for the 5 spots. Very generous of you. I appreciate it. It says, in your previous life as a storyteller in the wrestling ring, did any other wrestlers share your love for reading? # let's go nuts. It's a good callback. Thank you. I know that there was definitely some readers, but I don't know if they were as big into it, obviously, than I am now. And it wasn't something that I got into because like then when I was wrestling, that's what I was doing. I wasn't doing a lot of the things. So I didn't have time to read as much. And when I was reading, it was mostly audiobook nonfiction stuff. So I never brought it up in discussion, but I would say that there's a lot of readers in wrestling because the good ones at least are storytellers, and they're storytellers that like to think outside of the box. And one way that you can think outside of the box is to get outside of your medium, right? So instead of being the 1 millionth ripoff of Ric Flair or whoever it might be, like you bring a different perspective. The number one thing I would say to a new professional wrestler, like if I was training somebody, I would say you need to read everything. You need to read Shakespeare. You need to see what it means to become a character. What does character development mean? What does character consistency mean? And these are all things that you guys probably don't care to hear about. But that is a long-winded answer to say, I'm not sure if there were any other book lovers, but I would imagine so. I imagine Gannon Jones would be a reader because he nerds out a little bit with me, and he's a great dude. The Bee's Knee says, I have been reading Berserk for a long time now, and I didn't know how to pronounce the names until I saw dudes talking manga viewers correcting them. Yeah, so it's a learning experience for all of us, which is great. Colton says, you need to wait until you're caught up with Dresden before doing a top 10 series because it literally can't be overhyped to how epic it gets. I know it's hard to imagine early on, but it's the truth. Yeah, honestly, Dresden is one of those ones that I absolutely feel like I need to finish before I do that. I will say this. I'm going to be doing Blood Rights this month. And while I did enjoy book 5, I mean, I think Dresden's great. It's good. It's not like necessarily something that inherently calls to me. But I'm willing to be surprised. I'm willing to be shocked, but I could see it just being in that really good category. But I see, I can't even say that because I haven't read the rest, and I know I got to get the changes because that's the tagline. Sally says, which Game of Thrones house do you belong in? I would say either the Baratheons or the Danes for sure. Theo says that he wants to read Long Price Quartet. Yeah, me too. Jake Bishop is a big fan of the Black Company, and he just finished it up, and I know that he was kind of blown away by it, so it's pretty cool. Fantasy Fanatic says, any chance you get back to the Wheel of Time? Probably one day, throwing it on audio, but I just don't see like the next one. Which is the next one? Lords of Chaos is supposed to be one of the best, some people's favorite, and like if I'm having a year and a half a gap of picking that up, how in the hell am I ever going to get through the slog? And I know there's people saying the slog's actually not that bad, but like you don't understand. I didn't like the ones that are supposed to be great. So how am I going to get through that? Right? I don't know. I am kind of curious to see how Sanderson finishes up, though. Did you hear McCarthy has new novels coming out this year? Yes, 2 of them. And I will be picking them up, but probably not being able to read them this year, unfortunately. A lot of Dresden hype. Wendigoon the Goat. Wendigoon's all right. He makes cool videos. He's kind of a weird guy. Have you read any Alistair Reynolds? House of the Suns is a mind-blowing far future space opera novel. I have not, but Alistair Reynolds is the person that wrote A Virgin, I believe, and that is a book that I have on my short list because it's 300 pages in a standalone. So I will be reading some Reynolds fairly soon. Denver Nuggets equals Nuggy Boy 3000. Yep, you got it. You got it. Yep. I finally started Gardens of the Moon, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm liking it a lot more than Wheel of Time. I concur. I feel very much the same. Catherine says, I am reading First Law now on book 2. So good. Yeah, I think for First Law, a lot of people bounce off book 1, but I feel like book 2 and 3 are much, much superior. Stuart says, do you plan on diving into some historical fiction, and which ones look tempting to you? Yeah, Giles Christian's work is probably the ones that are most interesting. And then obviously you got Corn Dog. And then Khan Igwoodlid. I can't say the last name. Khan, the Genghis Khan series that everyone talks about. Yes, the Baker community is awesome, Amanda. And I will be doing a R. Scott Baker live show tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time with Amanda from Shelf Unstable and Mark from Slowly Read. And we are going to be talking about the final 2 books in the Second Apocalypse, which is The Great Ordeal and The Unholy Consult. So make sure you check that out tomorrow. If you're a R. Scott Baker fan, all 15 of you, it will be a really good time. And then I'm sure I'm going to figure out some things that I missed because those books are super dense. Tony asks, do you like Greek mythology? I don't know enough about Greek mythology, and I feel like I should. I need to be more well studied in that. Maybe I need to have Alan give me a boot camp or something. But I mean, I like what I've had of it, but I don't necessarily reach for it all the time. Your brain on books says, rumors you got some new A Song of Ice and Fire editions. Care to show them off? If they were in this room, I would, but they are downstairs in a box because I kept them in the box because I keep saying I'm going to do an unboxing of them, but I haven't because I don't know. I get weird about unboxings for some reason. Philip is not toxic. I keep meaning to pick up combat codes. Will do. I love good BJJ. Yeah, Theo, wait till Orbit re-releases it though, because he's adding like 100 pages to the book and doing edits. So just wait for the release. And I know Alexander, so we can work something out. We can do it on your channel or mine. It'll be a lot of fun. Sounds like some other people have had issues with their comments as well. Hayden says, what are the top non-science fiction fantasy books you want to read, nonfiction classics, etc.? Count of Monte Cristo, The Bicameral Mind, Dawn of Everything, and there was one I think I already mentioned in the stream, and I can't remember. Oh, just all of Cormac McCarthy stuff. And I also want to get more into Emily Mandel. Is that her name? I always forget her name. The one who wrote Station 11. Yeah, Emily St. John Mandel. I really want to read more of her stuff. So cool. I'm starting to catch up. We're getting closer. Danelle says, Jimmy, have you seen Phillips and Murphy's Vinland Saga videos? Would you collab with them if they ever read Berserk? Yes, I would. Murphy is a very kind individual, and I have nothing but respect for Dr. Philip Chase. I even offered Dr. Philip Chase maybe to read Vinland and maybe talk about it. But alas, it wasn't the right timing, and Murphy caught him at a good time. So, yeah, if they ever wanted to do anything about anything, I would be down. It'd be cool. Yeah. So Nikki asked, are there any authors you haven't read that you are intimidated by? Gene Wolfe, easily. And also Gormenghast, which I also always forget his name. So roast me in the comment section for that. But Gormenghast and the Book of the New Sun are easily the two most intimidating. I would say Blood Meridian's probably up there as well. I will read all of those at some point, but it's going to be at the right time when I'm looking for a challenge. Right now, I just switched jobs and it's a lot and it's stressing me out, to be honest. I walked into something that I didn't necessarily, I wasn't told all the details about this new position. And it's, Gormenghast is Peak. It's Peak. Yeah, I just remembered that. Anyways, yeah, so my job's been stressing me out a lot and it's using a lot of brain power. And it caused me to lose a little bit of sleep. And I just can't do a super dense series right now. So the Book of the New Sun is one I keep pushing off, but it's got to be the right timing. I don't want to bounce off of it. When I do it, I want to do it and be into it, just like I was with Malazan, just like I was with the Second Apocalypse. So if I ever get a show, Jimmy, I'll specifically ask for it to air Thursday at 9. I was wondering if you ever did your wrestling stuff in Memphis, Tennessee. That's where I live, and I know back in the day there's a lot of wrestling here. Yeah, I did wrestle in Memphis. I can't remember the actual venue name, but I wrestled in Memphis many times. I also wrestled at the Stadium Inn in Nashville, Tennessee for SAW. It was NWA SAW, and it was on local television down there. And I wrestled a guy named Jeff Daniels my first time there, and I'll never forget it because I got dropped on my head. I'm pretty sure I had a concussion, and I got paid $5 and a hot dog, and I couldn't get a hotel. And there were drug deals and all kinds of creatures of the night at Stadium Inn. So I couldn't sleep in the parking lot. So I drove home, and I remember falling asleep while I was driving. And I'm really lucky that I didn't die. So, yeah, I've been to Tennessee a ton of times. Smoky Mountain Wrestling, I wrestled for them, and I was in their the Smoky Cup qualifier. I did that. I also wrestled for Beyond Wrestling at Smoky Mountain once. That was kind of cool. So yeah, I've been to Tennessee a ton. You guys have amazing sweet tea and fantastic barbecue. Oh, Caitlin says, I just finished Excalibur today. So good. Enemy of God is my favorite, to be fair. Yeah, a lot of people seem to like Enemy of God. I was pretty close to on both of those. Oh, would you ever read another book from the 1980s like The Dragonbone Chair? Yeah. If you mean as in because I read it, great. If not, I love Tad Williams. I love Memory, Star, and Thorn. He kind of has gotten lost due to all my recency biases. But Tad Williams is one of my favorite authors, and I think Memory, Star, and Thorn is phenomenal. I'm going to be reading the follow-up series whenever he finishes it. But yeah, I'm going to be reading lots of stuff from the 80s, 90s, 70s, 60s, all that stuff. The Chronicles of Amber is something that I'm on book 3 of, and I'm just picking them up as I go whenever I have time. And that was written, 70s, 73, I think. And Jack Vance's The Dying Earth was in the 60s, I believe. So I want to see Dandelion Dynasty adapted. This will probably show up late and out of context. No, it's all good. The ultimate test of whether this works or not, by the way, is for those watching after the fact. I'm talking to you right now, so listen closely. Leave me a comment. Is this enjoyable to listen to after the fact? Because obviously live, it's very fun and it's very interactive. But I want to know that people who are listening after the fact are also enjoying this kind of format. I'm trying to keep context by reading the chat as I go as well. So I can't wait for Alan to listen to First Law so we can get some Glotka, Giselle, Logan, and Baez impressions. Yes, Alan is like the perfect reviewer for that series. Brent says Joanna and Philip are based, as the kids say. I miss Bess. Stuart, what would you say to whet my appetite for Grace of Kings? Number one priority for 2023. You like historical fiction, and in the same way, Grace of Kings is kind of setting up a historical context for you. And you are going to jump large amounts of times. You're going to have events that happen that in just like a paragraph, and then it's going to continuously move on. Some people bounce off of this, but Stuart, I think for you specifically, that you will enjoy this because you've read a lot of historical fiction. So Michael Moorcock is underrated, in my opinion. And your name's Elric. That's pretty dope. Yeah, he's one that I want to get to. I bought both of the new illustrated editions that they re-released, so I'm very excited about getting into that work. And, Elric is supposed to be one of the most influential characters in fantasy ever, and a lot of people don't seem to give that its proper due. Like Geralt from The Witcher, from what I understand, is largely based around that character. So it's definitely been important. An older gentleman, did you see me reading Vinland Saga? Yeah, only whenever a big YouTuber asks you to, Philip, you son of a gun. The Poppy War and the Unhuman Throne trilogies needed the AP Canavan editing treatment. I doubt that some traditionally pub series get much of that at all. Well, they do get it, Ben. It's just whether or not the editing is good. Just like authors, there are, and same thing. There's good and bad editors. What makes that? I'm not sure. I'm not qualified to say. I love seeing all this Vinland Saga. I know some people get a little bit perturbed that a lot of book people end up getting into manga, but I think it's like a pretty natural bridge because it's storytelling. And it really pleases me whenever I see a decent amount of people who say, hey, I at least tried it. And it seems like the people who do give it a shot and start out with the right stuff, and right stuff subjective for whatever you might want. It seems like it's a pretty positive experience. And also I found that it has grown my stamina for books. Like if I read 100 pages of Kings of Paradise, I might be exhausted, but I still want to read. You ever have that? You're like, I wish I could just close my eyes and it would just play, which someone's going to tell me, well, that's audiobooks, but it's different. Picking up a manga, brushing through like 2 chapters, which is fairly easy, sometimes like reignites my ability. It's like a breath of fresh air, second wind, Yeah, Brent is recommending a version by Alistair Reynolds. That is, I'm so excited to get to that. I know Raph, for those who enjoyed his appearance here on Chatting with Nuts, I think that's his book of the year right now. So, have you read Between? I'm assuming this is Between Two Fires. I have not, but I do plan on it. I came back from dog wrangling to you talking about Smash and thought you were going to do a Smash or Trash book edition. Let's see. It's so fun to see people come to manga for the first time on BookTube. I grew up with manga, and now I'm getting all kinds of new discussion videos and recommendations. Yeah, it's also like interesting to get other people's perspective who like aren't, who are well read but not well read in manga, I think. Annette says, are you interested in branching out into more horror other than King? Would love to see it. Yeah, absolutely. I like Stephen Graham Jones. Peter Straub is someone I have a lot of friends that are giving Ghost Story 5 stars, and that is one that I wish I could have fit in this month. There's also a book called Dark Matter, and it's not the Blake Crouch one, but there's a horror book called Dark Matter, and it's written by a female author that I can't remember the name of. And my good friend Amanda said it was excellent, and I actually picked it up because it's only like 200 pages. So I'm hoping to fit that in before the end of the year, and maybe even before the end of the month, because I have a long plane ride coming up this month. So Ronak Attack says, reading Vinland Saga while listening to Chief Keek. Sosa, baby. Let's go. Oh, man. Kevin Bishop says, any chance we can get an episode with Brian Lee Durfee? Yeah, absolutely. I just have to get it figured out. And, it'll just be pure chaos, and I have to accept that. As someone who likes things to be very like concise and neat and set up, that's not what we're going to get from the BLD episode. But I need to reach out to him and make that happen, because he's a great guy. Sent me signed copies of his books, and I got a lot of love for Brian Lee Durfee. I think he's an incredible member of the community. I think that he has a lot to say. I think he's extraordinarily talented. Hard to find someone I know in life that is as talented as him, being an artist and also being an author, and also just being a hell of an entertainer. His channel is fantastic. I always say this, but his Redwall review on his channel is like one of the best YouTube videos ever made. I believe that. It should have millions of views. It's hilarious. Ian says, I say Ian. Ian. Why do I always question myself on stream? I always do this. If you could clear your memory of one fantasy series to experience it again for the first time, perhaps from a different perspective, what would you pick? That's a really good question. I think I would like to, if I could do it again. This is a great question. For the first time, Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, because every time I've reread it, I've appreciated what Tolkien was doing more and more and more. And I'll never get back that first read. And that kind of stinks, right? And I remember I read it when Fellowship came out. So I didn't know what happened in Two Towers and Return of the King. Like I had no idea. I was a kid. And I was just a little too young, a little too dumb for it, I think. And I bounced off of it, even though like it was pretty formative for me as a reader. And if I could go back with this perspective that I have now that I've read a lot of stuff, I think it would be pretty incredible to read that again, to be honest with you. It's one of the reasons why I think Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn works so well for me as a reader, because I had read a lot of stuff at that point. I shouldn't say a lot of stuff from me. And a lot of the stuff that I enjoyed had borrowed from Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And it made that experience really amazing. To kind of be like, oh, that's where that came from. I'm also getting that feeling when I read Roger Zelazny. Roger Zelazny is so important. Such an important author. Any nonfiction you've been reading recently? No, but I really want to read The Bicameral Mind by Julian Jaynes. I think it is. Maybe it's Justin Jaynes. Can't remember. Stuart says, prediction you'll enjoy Ghost Story more than Changes when we're talking about Dresden. Okay, that's a big one. Juana Maria says, does John Irving count? He used to be very involved in wrestling, and he's a writer. To be a writer, one needs to be a reader too. I would say that does count. I think that absolutely counts. We need to change the tagline to just get the turncoat. That book rocks and is always overshadowed by the next one. Okay. Amanda L says, are you reading the Wolf next month? I really want to read this series. Leanna has asked me multiple times to read it, and I know they're doing a read along. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Maybe. I don't want to commit to too many things. I got a lot going on, and I don't want to. This cannot become stressful. Reading can't become stressful because I will lose my mind. So I am not committing to that at all. But maybe. Elric says, thoughts on David Gemmell. So David Gemmell is someone that I thought I would 100% like, and I want to read more of his books. I wanted to start with Troy, and everyone told me not to. They told me to start at Legend. And the more I hear about Troy, the more I'm convinced that that's where I should have started, because I read Legend, and I love like a Warrior's Last Stand, like an old grizzled vet. Like it should work for me, but it just didn't. And I have restarted that book like 4 times, and I cannot seem to finish it. So I've just accepted that it's a DNF at this point. I don't think it's a bad book. I just, for some reason, cannot connect with it. And it doesn't mean that I won't read any more David Gemmell. I'm definitely going to read more David Gemmell, especially the Troy stuff. I really want to read the Troy stuff. And I know that he died at the typewriter, the computer, or whatever, and his wife finished it. And so it's not like purely his work. I don't care. That's the one that's calling to me. So like the next thing I read from him has to be a hit, or it's going to be a long time before I ever get to him again, because there's some authors, I only give them one chance. And if it doesn't work out, like I'll probably never read Brian Staveley again. Like, let's be honest. At first I was kind of like, well, maybe I'll see how he grown is. I'll never read Brian Staveley again. It's never happening. Never happening. And that's not the case with David Gemmell. I have so much respect for David Gemmell, just knowing what he means to the genre, that I feel like I have to do another one. I have to. And I want to like his stuff. And there was stuff in Legend that I really, really loved. But for some reason, it just didn't work. If it had been only centered around the main character, Dross, it would have been perfect for me. Perfect for me. Totally subjective. See you, Mitch. Take it easy, buddy. The meats be praised. Books of biggest concept. The first third of Legend is a bit rough as Gemmell's debut, but the last 2/3 was awesome for me. I got to try more. Yeah. Andy Smith says, I'm reading Mythology by Edith Hamilton, and it is a great, short, and straightforward intro to Greek mythology. Strongly recommend. Send that to me on whatever messaging platform you'd prefer, Andy, so I can pick it up. Ben Brown says Murphy will not like Berserk. I don't like speaking for other people, but I have a suspicion that you would be correct, Ben. Jimmy Loki elbow dropping Philippin about Vinland. I'm never letting it go. We're on Petty Avenue and I'm riding it to the finish. I can do that because I love Philip. I traded Soldier of the Mist by Gene Wolfe and I just couldn't keep up. Following what was happening just got exhausting. Yeah, and I think with those, like you got to be up for it, got to be at the right time, and you got to click with the material. And that those are a lot of pieces that have to be in order to appreciate something. So, favorite places you wrestled in or favorite cities you have been to? I love wrestling in Mississauga, Canada, and Toronto. Those are man, it's hard to beat the Canadian crowd. Like, it's really hard. Charleston, West Virginia also is always a fun time. And honestly, Nashville, Tennessee fans were rabid. They can make 300 sound like 3,000. But for my money, I don't think that you could beat a hyped up IWC Pittsburgh crowd. The craziest place I ever wrestled was what was that place called? Dropkick. I think it was called Dropkick in Toronto. It's like in this old chapel, and they let the fans like stand next to the ring and like it was wild. That's a story for another time. Key says, as a Book of the New Sun fan, I can safely say it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. You just need to pay attention. I felt that way kind of about Molassen as well. So John's Book Corner says $5 and a hot dog to fight the guy from Dumb and Dumber. Rough beats out here, John. What can I say? Oh, man. Yeah, a lot of people giving a lot of praise to Gene Wolfe in the chat, and I know that there are many people who consider him to be the best writer ever in sci-fi and fantasy, either or. And just literature, people say he's just terrific. Oh, you know who else I need to read a lot of, and I always kind of forget, and it's because it never calls to me, but I feel like if I would just like get myself to read it, I would be more into it, and that is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. Like, I read Mort and I loved it, but like I need another pull in, and I think Guards is probably the place for that. Part of the reason why I haven't got to it though is because the physical editions are terrible. They are the tall, skinny paperbacks, and they're just not very fun to read. And yeah, I know that's stupid, but it is what it is. Did you ever try Tad Williams' other series like Shadow March and Otherland? I never seen anything about those. No, but I am very interested to try Otherland. I think it's going to be really cool. And Shadow March, I've heard a lot of really good things about. I did read The War of the Flowers by Tad Williams, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite fantasy standalones. It is a massive book, and it has a really interesting history that centers around it came out or was written around the same time as 9/11, and there's an event in the book that kind of reminds people of 9/11. So he had to like wait to release it, and because of that window, it really, really messed with the book's success. Also, there's like a lot of history when it comes to publishing, I'm sure, in any of the genres around 9/11. Janie Wirtz has talked about it to me before, and it's just fascinating, like the factors we don't really think about because we don't see that side of the business. Oh, when people tell me that they're like doing chores and listen to this and it helps them get through, that always makes my day. Oh, perfect timing. How would you feel about a Discworld adapted into a TV series? I don't think I can comment on it because I've only read the one thing, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Connor says, since Gurm mentions Zelazny as an inspiration a lot, do you see the influence in his writing yet? Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I also think Zelazny had a big, profound impact on Robert Jordan. There's even like talks about the wheel and the pattern and some other stuff that I'm like, oh, that's where he got it from. Which isn't a bad thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with wearing your influences on your sleeve. Zelazny has impacted a lot more than just George. Neil Gaiman has always said that Neil Gaiman says a lot of people are his favorite author, but he constantly praises Zelazny. Moorcock is one of the most ripped off. Once you read him, you'll notice the influence everywhere. Yeah, I love reading that stuff. It's awesome. Annette says, since you got into manga, do you ever think you'll try comics? I think you would love Sweet Tooth, 6 volumes, and it's complete. Yeah, I want to read Lock and Key, which is a graphic novel. Does that count? And I've also started Saga. I just kind of got stopped on it because I just ran out of time. Holy Hearted says, I started Between Two Fires and couldn't finish. Wrong headspace, I think. It's interesting. Between Two Fires was very much praised, and I've been seeing other people bounce off of it recently, and it's one of those books that is like in the middle now, which is fun in a way. Sweet Tooth is awesome. Post-apocalyptic with an animal-human hybrid children. Post-apocalyptic, you say? I'm in. Also, I was talking about Dark Matter earlier, which is that horror book that my friend Amanda talked about, and it's by Michelle Paver, which is Stephanie brought that up in chat, and I just wanted to thank her. I hate when I forget names, but there's just too many. Darlene says, I watched Brian Lee Durfee's review of Redwall on your recommendation, and it was just what I needed. If it doesn't make you smile, I don't know what will. What's the best horror novel or series you've read? Horror novel, I would give it to It. Be finishing up here in a few days. And when it comes to like horror, like that's the best like scary book. Like there's times where it legitimately creeps me out. Miss Garfield, I have not read The Tritonian Ring by L. Sprague de Camp. I probably butchered that. But no, I haven't. But that sounds really interesting. When this video is over, if you could drop that in a comment and I'll pick it up. Have you ever counted how many books you own? What would be your estimation? If I had to guess, I would say somewhere between 300 to 400. It might be a little high. Let's say 250 to 300 books, I think. Depends also if you count manga. Nikki says, my 10-year-old wants to know, did you like the ending of Lord of the Rings and would you change it, how it ended? Yes, I liked it and I would not change it because I think Tolkien was awesome. Conan, greater than Elric. Okay. Conan's another like that's an old story that I need to read because obviously it's had a massive impact on the genre. Vagabond. Yeah, I'm going to be reading Vagabond after I catch up with Berserk. That's the plan. Getting caught up here. What the plan with writing sprints? Was the plan to go along with NaNoWriMo? Any ideas about the next projects? Thank you for the question. And I think we're going to be doing the writing sprints on Alan's channel. And I don't think that we're going to line up with any kind of restrictions. It's just going to be like when me and him are both feeling it. And hopefully we get some work done. Whenever I join Alan's sprints, I legitimately try not to distract, but I can't help it. I'm just a talker. Any Malazan advice? I'm loving it through book 3, but I feel I need a break. Better to read it in small doses or power through all 10? That depends on you, Matt. That depends on you as a reader. The one thing I will say is that you can approach each one as an individual story because there's not a lot of tie over until you get into the later novels. I think that's absolutely a natural break point after Memories of Ice if you want to take a break and then come back to House of Chains at another time. In fact, it might even be good for you because Memories of Ice has these really epic moments and a lot of stuff gets thrown at you. And then House of Chains is the biggest, like, in my opinion, the biggest variance from book to book because House of Chains is another soft reset in some ways. And you're going to be sitting in one POV through the entire first part of House of the Chains, which just happens to be amazing. But I actually think that there's a really good natural break point, Memories of Ice and House of Chains. So I think I even actually took a month off between those two, which is probably the longest break I took off of Malazan. I just ripped through Malazan though. Like I don't know. I know some people don't like it, but man, I loved it. I really did. My good friend Brent says, I was actually excited for Stavely and heard good things until Adam's read along burned it to ashes and salted the earth. There's still some people, I mean, that love him, which is great. He's just not the guy for me. Not the author for me. Don't know if I missed it, but ETA more Jenny Wirtz content. Yeah, so I think that we're supposed to be doing a no spoiler, like introduction type thing with Janny to kick off that read along at the end of this month. It's been pushed back a lot. There's been a lot of stuff happening. There was a hurricane in Florida where Janny lives, and just a bunch of other stuff. And whenever you're doing this big of a read along with such a dense series with a lot of people, it is very hard to coordinate. But I think it's going to be kicking off at the end of October, beginning of November, and then we are going to be off to the races on that. I do have doubts whether we'll be able to do one book a month because these books are big and they are dense. And I feel like I'm going to need at least 6 weeks to do a book, especially because there's no audio. So I don't have any kind of aid when it comes to immersive reading or getting reading done while I'm in the car. So we'll see. We'll see what the timeline's going to be. We are going to go through the Janny Wirtz series, though, for sure. The Struggler, great name, says, I started reading The Dragonbone Chair after listening to your review of the book. I'm around 250 pages in the book. It started a bit slow, but I'm really getting into it now. It is a methodical book, and Dragonbone Chair is one of the slowest intro books that I've read. But to me, it's like everything that is fantasy. Like, I love it so much. I actually like books 2 and 3 more. That's not a super popular opinion, I don't think, but for me, it only gets better from here. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only person on the planet who doesn't like Pratchett. No, I know plenty of people who do not like Pratchett. I liked Pratchett. My thing is that I don't gravitate towards that kind of style of story. So for me, it's like Vinland, right? Like I'm like, I love it, but to get me into it, to open the book for some reason is a bit of a task. Oh, the UK hardcover editions are so good. Good to know. Very, very good to know. Jennifer just asked about the Curse of the Mistwraith. Janie Wertz read along kind of just answered that. Everyone's telling me to go to UK hardbacks for Pratchett. Good to know. A lot of hate for the tall, skinny mass market paperbacks. Chibi Poe says, War of the Flowers was pretty great. I need to get a copy for it. I've got Shadow March and Out of the Land and the Urban Fantasy series he did and all the Ostenard stuff. He's in top 10. I would agree. He's in my top 10 authors as well. The thing about Tad is that he's like so good at everything. Like I would say that he excels at every point of what like storytelling is, like characters, the plot, his writing, like the whole thing. But whenever you're so good at all of them, it's hard to like pick the one thing. When someone's like, sell me on Tad Williams, I'm like, I don't know how to do this, like he's like a B+ to an A- about at everything. And it just makes for really easy reads, in my opinion. Yes. So Brent asked me this question. Ever thought of reading Gap Cycle by Donaldson? I'm about to start book 3 and is feeling that cold, dark hole in my soul. Yeah. Gap Cycle, in fact, is going to be what I read from Donaldson next. I bounced off Thomas Covenant book 1. And it's actually not because of like the infamous scene that happens in the first like 100 pages or whatever. It was just for me, I wasn't in the mood for that long exposition, very slow, methodical book. I went into it at a wrong time. So I'll probably get back to Thomas Covenant, but I'm going to read Gap Cycle first. And Donaldson is someone I love reading his essays. I like hearing him speak. He was a very kind person when I met him. And talk about influences on the genre, massive, as Alan would love to hear me say, implications on the genre. So Donaldson's someone I'm going to read a lot more of in the future. Philip says, I saw the title and realized I was the featured guest. Sorry I'm late. Not a problem. Have you seen the Discworld Imperium editions? They're very good. I've not. Tony, I love this question. He said, would you recommend reading Dune? Yes, I would. And if you don't like it, it's okay. It's a weird book. And Frank Herbert isn't like the most accessible writer of all time. But I think if you enjoyed the movie, you should definitely read the book. Tanner, one of my good friends, is reading through Dune Messiah. I think it was a reread. And he was just talking about like how wild Dune Messiah is. And the fact that they want to adapt that as like a third movie in the Dune cinema universe is like wild. Like how do you can't, I don't know if you can do Dune Messiah in the cinema. I don't know if it would be interesting, or I don't even know how you would do some of it. Dune Messiah is full of really cool ideas. That was a story that I just didn't think was great, to be honest. So yeah, you should read Dune though. Just read book 1. It's cool. Volume 2 of the Viz Big editions for Vagabond is hard to find. That is not good to hear. Okay. Hayden says, also, Jimmy, if you dig horror and are appreciating writing as a craft, you should definitely check out Clive Barker, Dark Fantasy with stellar prose. Yeah, my friend Baron, Your Brain on Books, is a massive Clive Barker fan, and Clive Barker is someone I'm going to read more of for sure. I did try Damnation Game. I ended up DNFing it because I started it, was enjoying it, and then towards the middle, I felt like it was kind of sputtering. And then like I put it down for 2 weeks and I just never picked it up. So I was like, well, I guess I'm never going to finish this book. Also, I'm not a big fan of the premise of like making a deal with the devil type deal. It's never been something that I'm really into. Like I love crappy horror movies like Wishmaster back in the day, for those who've seen those. Like I enjoy them for what they are, but like I don't like that premise. Like any, Genie in a Box, any of that stuff where it comes to like grant the wishes and it bites you, or you sold your soul, any of that stuff has never really been my bag when it comes to horror. Hey, thank you, Austin. He says, hope you're having a good day, Jimmy. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. The Hellbound Heart has a great Baroque prose that completely fits the vibe of a sexual and indulgent horror novel that explores pleasure and pain. That's a hell of a sell. Oh, yes, Fantasy Fanatic. Good question. Thoughts on Sanderson getting a co-author for the Cosmere? So if you haven't seen the news, Brandon Sanderson's giving up Stormlight Archive, and Dan Wells is going to fit. I'm kidding. Though you would think that was the news with how negatively some people reacted to this. Dan Wells is going to be another mind in the Cosmere, the way that Sanderson has described it. I have not watched his interview with Daniel Green, so I don't know all of what he has said. I just read some of the transcripts from it. And I think it's a great thing. I don't understand why people would be negative on this. Sanders is looking at this and saying, okay, like we might have another 20, 30 years in the Cosmere or whatever it might be. We need some insurance, and as morbid as it is to think about these things, I think it's important. It's important to have somebody else in there. And the idea of maybe people continuing Cosmere after Brandon Sanderson's time, I think that's awesome. Because Cosmere is one of these things, whether you like it or not, you have to admit that it has captivated a massive amount of audience. It has brought so many people back to reading. It has brought so many eyes to the genre. One of the things whenever I got back into fantasy that I was ready to dive into was Stormlight Archive. And if it hadn't been for that pull and people selling me like, hey, you're done with the Song of Ice and Fire, you should try Stormlight, like I might have just dipped. I might have just stopped reading or just kept reading A Song of Ice and Fire 100 times, which I do anyways. So the pull for this is insane. It's the most successful, I would say, like modern series. No one's really doing it at this kind of level, right? Of just absolute dominating the commercial space. So this is something that is probably going to become an IP that is going to transcend generations. It's probably going to be passed on in families, kind of like Tolkien is. So again, whether or not you like it is really irrelevant to say that this is really important. It's important to keep people into reading and maybe a gateway to other things. So I think that having someone there as an insurance policy, if anything were ever to happen to Brandon, but also just someone to bear the burden with him and maybe able to work some things out. I think that is super duper important. Ty Franck and Daniel Abraham did this for Gurm in A Song of Ice and Fire in a lot of ways and have really helped Gurm out in some places that he got stuck. Obviously, Gurm's really stuck right now with Winds of Winter, but that's neither here nor there. So I think it's great. When I saw people reacting to it at first and I hadn't seen the transcripts, I literally thought like someone else was going to like finish Stormlight or something because people were just acting like it was absolute doomsday. I'm like, relax, And to be honest, like, I feel like it was not the Sanderson fans. It was the people who don't even like the Cosmere to begin with. It's like, come on. Sorry for the long rant, by the way. I'm full of them. I don't know about Dan Wells writing, but I left him on the Intentionally Blamed podcast with Sanderson. Yeah, I haven't read any Dan Wells, but can you imagine how many books he's going to sell this week? Kels, my wife says, you have around 300 visible books in the library. So that's my library room. I have 300 there. I probably have at least 100, 150 up here. So yeah, I probably have about 450 books for the people who asked me earlier. Jimmy, considering you like some weirder fantasy recently, I think you should try Catling Vor's trilogy. He sadly passed away recently and his work deserves some discussion. Leave it in a comment on this video. Like, when you all recommend me stuff and I think a premise sounds good, I go check it out on Goodreads or whatever. And you leave in a comment, I do add it to my TBR. Doesn't mean I'm going to read it like this year or next year or the year after that, but it does go on the TBR. And you never know when it could jump in line. So Jimmy bounced off Damnation Game, so he should start with Weave World or Magica. Yeah, I want to read Weave World. That's like the one I feel like is calling to me. And Baron is really big on it. David Sloan, how you doing, man? He said, as you've been dipping your toes into literary fiction lately, you should check out The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. Strikingly well written, plus it's a boring, which we know Jimmy Nuts loves. I do love me a boring book. Stoner by John Williams is no exception. I love that book and nothing happens. It's fantastic. All right. Chippy Post says, last one for me, but Wrecking Michelle West Isalian series, lots of books, but so good and more support for her after PR8 Penguin Random House shafted her. Again, leave it in the comments for sure. If you guys are making these recommendations, I really do implore you to drop them down in the comments afterwards. Favorite character in Realm of the Elderlings? Oscar, my man. I'm so sorry I didn't like the Pariah. Favorite character in Realm of the Elderlings? I'm not going to pick Fitz, okay? I'm not going to pick Fitz or the Fool. I'm not gonna pick like Fitz, Full, or Night Eyes, right? Uh, favorite character. I would say Malta or Burich. And if I had to pick like a completely supporting character that I felt like doesn't get too much shine, it's Lady Patience. So those are that. I'll give you 3 of them. How about that? But I think I have to give it to Malta. Can it? I don't know. God, there's too many good ones. Jennifer says, if you're into historical fiction, I recommend James Michener. A lot of his books take a look at geographic area and do multi-generational epic. I am definitely a fan of multi-generational epics. It's something I'd like to see a lot more of in fantasy. It's one of the reasons why I actually really like the Dandelion Dynasty. It works. The generational stuff really, really worked for me. And it was interesting to see like trauma and whatnot passed down through the generations of this ruling class. And this is another reason why I really like Fire and Blood, even though it's a historical text. Like Fire and Blood might make my top 10 books this year because I I like seeing it. I like seeing the passing of time for some reason. It's something I used to really not enjoy. But Winter King and the Warlord Chronicles also covers a long period of time, more so with the same cast of characters. But generational epics are something that I would like to see more of in modern fantasy, for sure. Interesting. Ryan says, hey, Jimmy, what books would you recommend? They're similar to tone like Berserk besides R.R. Martin books. I would absolutely recommend you R. Scott Baker's Prince of Nothing trilogy and the Second Apocalypse as a whole. He has 7 books in the series, and I think that it coincides with Berserk and Dark Souls. I kind of like put those 3 in a bucket in my head. And also Malazan. Malazan for sure. Malazan definitely has like the big cool swords, whereas Prince of Nothing has a lot more of the philosophy. So it depends on what you like about Berserk. If you're more into the philosophical nature of it, I would say that Prince of Nothing would be a good place to go. And if you're into more of like still philosophical and themes and that kind of thing, but you also want like the big epicness, I think that Malazan has that in abundance. So Colton says, Jimmy, I don't think you'll like Vagabond because you have good taste. You'll think it's mid. We'll see. Samurai stuff is not something I usually love. The Broken Sword was a big inspiration for Michael Moorcock. Good to know. Good to know. It's funny. I'm reading some of these comments and people are like, you scared me there for a second. I'm like what did I say? Because I'm behind, I'm always wondering. Austin says Sanderson and Cosmere did get me back into reading for sure. That's right. Brent says Sanderson going to be the Patterson of fantasy. He'll eventually just be a brand and a bunch of mid books. Well, more mid books, I guess. Oh, I don't think he could. You know what? I don't think that he could be a Patterson because if there's one thing that you can say about Brandon Sanderson is that he loves being the dungeon master. Like he does not like giving away his secrets and he likes being in charge. Like he likes his lore. And I feel like even him giving up some of this stuff to Wells is probably hard. Probably really, really hard. Some people say they don't care about the Sanderson thing at all. I get it. I get it. Paramita says, I survived the Rings of Power finale. Sam says, how do you think the plotting of Attack on Titan competes with something like the Second Apocalypse? Attack on Titan is way more full throttle. Their plotting is almost polar opposites, in my opinion. A lot of the Second Apocalypse is the introspective character moments, and it moves at a very grueling methodical pace that can wear on you. I happen to love that stuff. Attack on Titan, sorry, pacing and plotting is the best I think I've ever seen in any story. Even though the ending is extraordinarily polarizing, like season 7 and 8 polarizing for some people, not all. Certainly not for me. I just think if you look at that as a whole, Attack on Titan is hard to beat when it comes to plot. Like really, really tough to beat. And some of the subtle attention to details. Attack on Titan is phenomenal. It's like not my favorite, but damn. Oh, Paramita says, I'm sad about the Sanderson decision. Interesting. I don't think, obviously that's valid that you feel that way, but I would just say this, like Brandon is not going to hand off things that are going to be like massive, right? This is going to be so he can fill in some extra gaps. Like I feel like it's going to be a lot about the like the extended Easter egg stuff. Like, I don't think Dan Wells is writing like the Mistborn finale or any of the main Mistborns or Stormlight, which I think is at the core, of the Cosmere. So I think it'll be okay, right? Hayden says, what are your thoughts on theater, Jimmy? Have you read and seen any plays that you loved? As a theater major, I feel like it's an underappreciated medium in the literary world. I don't have any opinions on theater. I am not well versed. What should I start with? I'm willing to give it a go, even though I feel like it's not my thing. I would definitely be able to give it a go. I did watch Alan's solo performance, and I thought that was incredible. Thiago says, love the Locke Lamore review. I really love the style of that book. I really love the third book as well, Republic of Thieves. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I said this earlier, but I feel like it's one of my better reviews. It was one of the most fun reviews I've had filming it. Like, I couldn't wait to get it done. And I'm going to probably start book 2 sooner rather than later. It's sitting downstairs and it's calling me. I love the cover of that mass market paperback, actually. I don't know why. Paramita says, Fire and Blood was such a good book. I agree. I had an absolute blast. Jimmy, sell me on the Dandelion Dynasty. Well, I could do that, but I think I did a better job in my constructed review for it. And you could even watch like the Dandelion Dynasty series, no spoiler review, where I say, did it stick the landing? I think you could watch those 2 videos and get a much better idea. But what I would say is that Dandelion Dynasty is definitely one of the most unique things I've read in modern fantasy. Obviously it's Asian inspired, but there's a lot more to it than just Asian inspiration. There's a lot of other inspirations in there. And if you are at all a fan of engineering and solving problems, this is definitely the series for you. I think if you enjoyed Rhythm of War, you would enjoy it. I know that's a really weird comparison. That's not a 1-for-1 by any means, but there are aspects of Rhythm of War that I did not like that Dandelion Dynasty had, and I also didn't like them there. But overall, I just think Dandelion Dynasty is so unique, and the generational piece of it is probably my favorite part. People are saying the new Berserk stuff's great. Yeah. All right. Weird generational literary standalone fantasy. 1981 World Fantasy winner. Little Big by John Crowley. Okay. You scared me saying Dan Wells was finishing Stormlight. Oh, is that why you were scared? That's funny. An Iliad is a play. Yeah, and ancient Greek plays, of course. Yep. Jolene, how's it going, my friend? She's, hi, everyone. Glad I'm finally able to catch one of these lives. 3 a.m. here. You are wild for being up at this time. I hope that you're not up at this time just to watch the show, though I don't think you are, because that would be self-centered of me. But welcome and good morning. Co-writing can mean Sanderson gets all of the interwoven ideas out. Yes, there might be things that he says like he might have that's what I meant. He has like puzzle pieces or like threads that are at the very like edge of the Cosmere that he just wants to get in so that he can like play with those ideas or connections more in the main series. I think that that's probably most likely what this is all about, right? Waldo says, thanks, Jimmy, for your down-to-earth conversations on Malazan. Hey, they were my pleasure. Some of my favorite content I made. When I got done with that, it felt like I had like achieved something, like achievement unlocked. And now I just want to go back through. I read a little bit of Gardens of the Moon like every other week, like a page or 2. In response to asking for musical recommendations, my favorite is Hadestown. It's an epic fantasy retelling of Orpheus myth, a 1920 style New Orleans jazz bar in a post-apocalyptic world. I feel like everyone's just throwing in post-apocalyptic now because they know I love it. I'm just kidding. I believe you, but it is funny. It feels like so much post-apocalyptic is coming across my desk now. Oh, okay. You were on the Friday combo with Steve, so now I'm way too hyped to go to sleep anyways. I get it. When I finish with these, I am like fried, but I'm also wired. Absolutely wired. Brent says, loving Grace of Kings, but Jimmy just compared the series to Rhythm of War, and now I'm questioning my reading choices. It's only certain aspects, Brent. Don't worry. Let's say it's not a 1-for-1 by any means. And I think, Brent, Wall of Storms, by the end of it, I think you'll love it. I I thought that was just an absolutely incredible book, and it's still probably going to be in my top 5 for the year. Nick says Rhythm of War is my favorite book, but I didn't like Grace of Kings, so not sure about the comparison. No. And honestly, it's not Grace of Kings. It's the Dandelion Dynasty that I'm comparing. There's a lot of engineering later and problem solving, and Rhythm of War goes into the details of those things too. So Rhythm of War and Dandelion Dynasty share that aspect. They're not a 1-for-1 by any means. That's what I mean by that. What speed did you do Warlord out on audio? Keebles, faster, most narrate. So I'm sticking. I can't remember, to be honest with you. Favorite A Song of Ice and Fire character? Mine is actually Brienne, excluding Tyrion. Tyrion and Jaime are tied, I would say. Do you read fables, fairy tales, and myths? Those stories made me an avid reader as a kid. No, I haven't. Or no, I don't. Oh, we got spam bots. Nice. Let me block Tinder hot hookups or whatever the hell it's called. I'm reading Rhythm of War right now. Fantasy Fanatic, how are you liking Rhythm of War? So I want to try something out here, and you guys can do this. Let's see if we can start a poll. And what I want to do is I want to see what kind of videos that you guys like the most, because I could go off my views, obviously. But I would like to hear my audience that's here tonight. And so I'm going to post this, and this is going to be a poll about what is your favorite type of booktube content. I've never done one of these live, so let's find out. Boom. So you all should see a poll. And if you go in, you guys can vote. And I want to know what's your favorite type of booktube content. So TBR wrap-ups, reviews, long-form discussions, podcast, or lore videos. If you all can answer that, I would love to see it. I want to start polling my audience more. I enjoy polls quite a bit. And I think that it also brings up some really good topics as well. Look at reviews. Just I also am trying to like see if the views make sense, because as everyone knows, the reviews are generally, they don't do great at first. They're very evergreen though, and they grow after time. My longest videos are both, or I should say my most viewed videos are actually both reviews. So I don't necessarily agree that reviews are like the lowest viewed things, because for me, they haven't been. But I'm always curious what people like to see. And long form discussion is busting out the gate here at 53%. TBR and wrap ups are at 28%. Wrap ups are always good. I think it's something that you can count on people who subscribe to your channel to come check out. And it's almost fun to make those. And the reason why I like making them, because you can take a load off. You don't have to go into so much detail, and you can kind of just say, hey, this is what I'm reading. This is what I'm going to be reading. And sometimes that coincides with the commenter. And then they say, hey, I read that last month too, or I'm going to be reading that this month, or I might check it out because you are. So it's like a way of like touching base with you all. But the one thing I really like is it's like a monthly check-in with the commenters. Like I see people and they only comment on my wrap-up videos, and it's like, oh, I'm glad to see you. Like I'm glad you're here, because you might not want to watch every single review I post. And I understand that, because you don't have an interest in the book. You haven't read it yet. You don't want to be influenced one way or the other. You just don't have any interest at all. So I like wrap-ups just the fact that it's like touching base with like my core audience and getting comments from people that I don't see other times of the month. And I think that's pretty cool. So there's almost 120 of you here, and only 63 votes so far. So cast your vote in the chat if you can see the poll. I've never done one of these before, so hopefully as a user, it's not hard. This is why you need mods. I agree. I also should probably plan a little bit. Jolene says, I DNF essay a couple pages into the second book. Should I continue, or is it just not for me, in your opinion? You should finish Words of Radiance, because I think Words of Radiance is one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. I think it has a ridiculous ending. And I've seen a lot of people who didn't love Way of Kings love Words of Radiance. So, Jolene, I actually think you should. Maybe wait until the book 5's out, because then if you like end up loving it, you can just roll through all the books, and then that's great. Like I really want to read Stormlight Archive right now. Today, I was staring at my Way of Kings, and I was like, should I just do it? But here's the thing, I'm gonna have to reread when book 5 comes out anyways. So I think I'm going to take some time, and it's only been like a year and a half since I finished. So I don't want to. I got burned out towards the end, towards Rhythm of War, and I don't want to burn out again. So, ah, yes, yeah, I didn't get all the BookTube content. Top list and tier list would definitely be up there too. So I don't watch much lore much. TBRs and reviews sometimes. Long form discussions are my favorite. Yeah, and I guess this is a bit of a biased crowd because you're here watching me live on a Friday night. Of course, you like long form discussions. uh, all four are legit interesting videos, though. Yeah, I don't see too much of a disparity between my videos on my channel. Like I see other people talk and they say the reviews, don't do well or certain things, and there's huge gaps. The only thing that I have a huge gap on is my manga content doesn't do well, which is funny because I've seen people say, people do manga on BookTube because it does so well, and I'm like, mine doesn't. Mine's basically a podcast format with my best friend, and we just talk about it as complete novices, first time readers, and we get stuff wrong, and there's a really dedicated base that watches us, but that's the one thing I know it does not get views, but that's okay. I don't necessarily mind as much, but I always love posting reviews. They're my favorite. I shouldn't say my favorite. They're the toughest thing to make, but they can feel the most rewarding at times. But nothing really beats this interaction that I have with you guys. Whenever you're watching this after the fact or you're watching it live right now, in a way, I know I'm talking to, hundreds of people at a time sometimes, but for me, it also still feels quite personal. And that is what I like. I like connecting with people. So I think for me, I would say long form discussions are definitely the best. Connor says, I think long form discussions are always better than reviews if you have already read the book. Yeah, and part of the struggle with reviews is that, like, do you keep it how spoiler free can you go while still being able to make points and reaffirm them? It's something like I look at reviewing as a skill, and I'm still sharpening and honing that skill, and I enjoy that. I'm very RPG driven, min max, right? I want to get as efficient as possible when I review books and be able to make statements about them that can be spoiler free but still tell you something. And I've done a better job of that recently, and it's something that I'm always going to strive to get better at. So I like the fact that reviewing feels like a skill. But it's hard to beat long form discussions with multiple people bringing different perspectives from a book in a full spoiler discussion. I mean, it's awesome. I also honestly love the idea of going through like a series, a chapter at a time, which is what we're going to be doing over at the Bend the Knee podcast. For those who don't know, which I'm sure you all do it by now, I am now a co-host of a Song of Ice and Fire podcast, Bend the Knee, which is massive in the podcasting world and growing on YouTube, but like significantly bigger in the podcasting world. And we are going through a Song of Ice and Fire chapter by chapter, week after week. House of the Dragon right now is taking over all that content, but we are going to be picking back up through about right at the beginning of A Storm of Swords. So it's going to be really cool if you want to check out that project. That's Bend the Knee on YouTube or anywhere you can get podcasts. Derry says, I like long form discussions, but I have voted lore too if I could, really diving into themes and characters. Yeah. I'll be honest, I love your TBR wrap ups because of the anticipation of your Patreon pick. Jennifer, I appreciate that. And the fact that I do that silly raffle machine, it's such a pain in the ass and it squeaks so loud. And I have to like make sure I hold it just the right way so it doesn't like kill your guys' ears. I have other ideas for how I could do random picks, and I want to get more and more ridiculous as I go. I think it's a good time. Pyramida says, I love your reviews. They have the greatest longevity value, in my humble opinion. Wrap-ups are hard to reach through, say, a year later. Yeah, they do well in the moment. Like most of your subs will watch a wrap-up, but not all your subs will watch reviews. But reviews bring in new viewers, too. So ADF says, I got into BookTube by looking up reviews of books I'd just finished. Took me 2 years to switch from watching for the book to staying for the creator. Yeah, and some people have no interest in the creator portion of it, and I totally understand that as well. Fantasy Fanatic said, would you ever do vlogs at the bookstore? I would love that. Yeah, I actually thought about doing a live stream from a Ren Fest as well, but it's one of those things where I don't want to dilute the content too much with like long nonsense, right? Yeah, stay tuned. Vlog live type content in different locations is going to happen. So Yeah, keep an eye out. And Jolene asked that as well, and that's my answer. Vlogging of a certain type will be coming. Poll wasn't hard or obstructive. It's a nice feature. Great. I'm glad people liked it. Let me end the poll because it's been going on for a while now. Okay, so what is your favorite type of booktube content? Long form discussion wins at 53%. TBR wrap ups 24%. Reviews at 12%. At 12%. And Laura at 10%. We had 83 votes. We need better participation next time. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so long form discussion. Obviously, I think there's probably a little bit of bias in that sample because we're in a long form type of discussion video right now. So. Holy Hearted said, if I had a channel, my TBR plan and my wrap up videos would have completely different books. Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of people talking, by the way, about Words of Radiance and just saying how much they enjoyed it more than Way of Kings. So I think Jolene, you can get back in that saddle and get to it. I think you'll like it. Hayden says wrap ups are great for touching base. Long form is great for interactions. Lore is fun for the passion behind it, and reviews are my favorite when I find something new or great discussion. Yeah, for sure. There's also people who can just talk about a book, and even if I have no intention of picking up, I just love hearing about it. Like I could listen to Alan talk to me, like he could pitch me like Bounty paper towels, and these things are friggin' great, man. They're so good. I don't know. There's something about, and that's the creator part, right? That's the personality part. They really can bring something to life. How far are you in monster manga? I am about to start the third perfect edition. Jimmy, do you plan to catch up on the Dark Age series by Pierce Brown in preparation for the new release next year? I plan on reading the sequel books next year, but isn't there going to be another fourth book? Like, didn't it go from a trilogy to a quartet? Because if that's the case, then I'm going to wait for all four to be out. I forget too many details. Like if I'm doing the same thing with Ostenard. Like I wanted to read all of Ostenard like as this next one came out, but then whenever he split it, I was like, I just have to wait. So the answer is, if it is now 4 books, I probably will wait. So Brent says reviews are great, but they're different than regular weekly content. Reviews hit right when you're curious about a book or a series and want to know more and see if you should commit. Yeah, definitely. It's also a little bit different for me because, like, obviously I consume BookTube, but like I have to be careful because I don't want to be parroting or get stuff from osmosis and repeat anything. Like I try to be very careful about that. And if I do reference someone else's opinion or their points, I try to always say their name and refer people to their channel and stuff. So as a reviewer, it's a little weird. Like I watch less reviews than I used to, unless I've already read the book. If I've already read the book, I'm watching your reviews. Like I see all you reviewing Warlord out there, Joanna. And I love that. And seeing, Dandelion Dynasty and everything else. And obviously Robin Hobb. Like I go and it's like I get to relive the experience a little bit, which is really, really fun. Oscar says Wall of Storms is fantastic. I feel like the criticism of book 1 is somewhat solved in Wall of Storms. I would agree. It's very, very, very different. Austin says this may be weird, but I fall asleep to these chatting with nuts and Dear Dr. Fantasy and the other long form discussion. Love hearing you guys talk about books and more. Nope, I do the exact same thing. Not always BookTube, but like long, soft spoken videos that are really chill. That's how I go to sleep at night. My wife absolutely hates it. Colton asked, does the second apocalypse have guns? No, but it has like everything else. Bernej says the one thing that turns me away from the from your manga content is that I just haven't read what you're discussing. It's hard to dive into a discussion about Berserk Volume 21 when you haven't started. Yeah, that's natural, right? The further you go into a series, the less people can watch it when you're doing spoilers. And that's interesting because a lot of times the coolest stuff happens at the end. So the most rabid fans show up. And that's why I like reviewing Aspect Emperor by R. Scott Baker and even Berserk. Yeah, they don't draw the most views, but man, are they good discussions. I mean, you have people who are really well versed in the material showing up, and they're just as important as the creator when you're doing it live because they're giving you live feedback about what you're talking about. They can bring up their perspective. I really do believe that, like, you all are a guest here tonight, but even in those spoiler discussions, it's a really, really cool thing. And that's why they're fun to do, even if they don't draw the biggest audience, you know? I also work at Barnes & Noble, so reviews help me with genres I don't read to recommend to customers. I always think about taking a part-time job at Barnes & Noble, to be honest. Eric, what's up? He said, so it won't be renamed Bend the Nuts. No, we will stay Bend the Knee over there at the Song of Ice and Fire podcast. Cool. It's interesting to see like what people like, as far as like their content goes. Because like we see in it's a very small amount of you who comment on videos, and even more of a smaller amount that like show up to a live stream for booktube content, right? So it's always interesting to just see, what resides with people or resonates. I mean, hopefully Jimmy does an in-depth Berserk review to date when he catches up. Yeah, I think I need to do that. I need to do Vinland when I get at least halfway through it, and I really need to review Attack on Titan as a complete series for the manga. Stuart says, I'm going to be dead before my random pick get chosen by chance. Hey, I read Ninth Reign this year. Daniel asks, will A Song of Ice and Fire ever be completed? I don't think so. And that's okay for me. I know some people can't stand that, but I'm a pessimist through and through. I think we'll get to Winds of Winter. Maybe. At this point, like, who knows, right? I would say 2024, November 2024 has been my guess for a couple of years now. But everybody has a guess. But no, I do not believe this series will ever be completed. Though there's so much money to be had that it is hard to imagine the publisher, HBO, like these people not wanting to cash out. But I don't believe George would finish it. And people who I thought would be a good fit to finish it have now said that they would not. Like Daniel Weber and Ty Franck do not want to finish it. At least that's what they've said. So, the check's big enough, anybody will jump in. So, Neil, thank you so much for the super sticker, my friend. That is very, very kind of you. And thank you for the 10 spot. And I know it's in the chat, but I wish I could show it on StreamYard. StreamYard, you need to get your stuff. I just paid you an extra $500 a year for 1080p. I think you guys should be able to put super stickers on the screen. Legitimately bothers me. I really just need to set up OBS and save myself like $1,000 a year. That'd probably be the better thing to do, right? Yeah, BookTube is definitely a bit of my social life. And by a bit, I mean all of it. Need to do a gym vlog, Jimmy. Show us how to get those gains. I have definitely thought about shooting just random shorts at the jiu-jitsu gym because sometimes I do things and I reference fantasy books or characters and stuff. Also, I have gotten so many people at jiu-jitsu to read fantasy. My God. Like I know for a fact I've got people back into reading that way. And then they come back to me. Like my friend Alex at the gym, he's an awesome dude. And I can't remember what he was reading whenever we first started talking, but I think he was reading Wheel of Time for the Wheel of Time show. He liked Tolkien, he liked Song of Ice and Fire, but now he's like into BookTube. And like he wasn't like a hardcore reader, as an adult. And now he's coming to me like, did you watch Critical Dragon's latest breakdown? And I'm like, no, I hadn't got a chance to watch it yet. He's like, dude, it's so sick. And I'm like, wow, this is wild. And he's like he's coming up to me and he's talking about Joanna. He's talking about Philip, and he watches my channel. I think he watches their channels more than mine now. But it's just like weird. Like he's now into like this subculture of things and he's in Memories of Ice and Malazan. It's just like, it's all around me. And I think it's awesome. Yeah, Neil did bring out that dope sticker in the 10 spot. I truly appreciate it. My first gym vlog will be books for your biceps, and it's just gonna be me lifting to Green Angel Tower copies. Yeah, Jolene, I think if you wait for book 5, it'd be a good idea. Also, reviews I tend to only watch if I specifically intend to read something or if I've already read it to see what I missed. Yeah, there's a lot of times where I learn something because, trust me, especially when you read a lot, some stuff runs together. Sometimes you're tired, you miss stuff. It is what it is. Oscar with the $5 super sticker with the laughing face. That's pretty awesome. Oscar, I'm just so glad that you don't hate me after not enjoying the Pariah. I appreciate that. Thank you. Awesome super sticker. $5. Very, very, very generous of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. ADF says, Jimmy, how did you get into BookTube? So I got into BookTube. I was done with the Song of Ice and Fire, and I was like, think it was the second time I'd read it, and I wanted to find more books. I was like, I got to find something else because this isn't going to be finished, and I can't just read the same books over and over. And like, what else is out there? So I'm one of these people who hyperfixate on something. I get obsessed with it, and I don't stop until I'm sick of it. So that's why I never play golf, because I know it's a rabbit hole. Like, I'll never be good at it. So I would just play it for the rest of my life and lose my weekends. Anyways, so that's how I did. And then I started looking up reviews. I found like Chris Bookish Cauldron, Daniel Green, obviously, Murphy, all those people, and just kept watching it. And at some point I said, I miss being on camera, because I had been a wrestler and stuff and didn't have a creative outlet anymore. And that's how I got into the booktube. I just said, well, I can get a camera. I can talk. If there's one thing in life I'm good at, it's talking, except for pronunciations, of course. But I don't know. It is the undying need to connect to another human being that I seem to try to suppress at all times. And I just end up in positions like this with 120 people watching me on a Friday night. I don't know. Yeah, the latest episode of House of the Dragon was so good. Holy Hearted says, I too am here for the creators' books we have in common are all relatively small percentage, but I love watching cool kids talk books. Hey, I love listening to people talk about series I don't even enjoy. I like seeing passion, Tony, you should just read Song of Ice and Fire. It's incredible. Most hated A Song of Ice and Fire character. Aren't there plenty? Euron is up there, I would say. And I'm talking about hating as in like, fun to hate, not like I think they're bad characters. I really don't like Peter Baelish. Like, he is so creepy. Like, ew. No one likes that. Elliot says, were you not put off by the creepy sexual undertone to everything in the Prince of Nothing series? I mean, if you mean, was it disturbing? Yes, it was very disturbing. But do I think that there's a lot more to it than just being grotesque? Yes. I think that there's a lot of philosophy there, and there's a lot to dig into. And also, like, what is that creepy, very gruesome sexual undertone say about humans? Like, what is R. Scott Baker trying to say about humans is also a pretty important theme that you have throughout there. And what does it mean to be human and agency and all of these things? So for me, I would say that put off in the sense that, yeah, it's disturbing, but it also is something that I like to stare in the face. I always try to stare at uncomfortable things in the face, because at the end of the day, like, those things happen somewhere to someone and it's awful. But by facing it and acknowledging it, even though I don't live that experience, it can sometimes bridge that gap, and it makes me never feel apathetic to those awful things. Some people do; they get desensitized to this kind of stuff. I have never been that person. To me, if anything, it makes me even more empathetic. That's just my take, though. What's up, Mark? What's up? I'm so excited for our second Apocalypse talk. Guys, if you aren't watching Slowly Read and you enjoy some grimdark stuff, I'm telling you what, you have to go check out Mark's channel. Mark does fantastic book reviews. He has a new setup, by the way. It looks it just looks awesome. I think Mark is one of the most underappreciated guys that we have here on the platform, and I love his content. And Mark has made my journey through Second Apocalypse so much better. Like, our Scott Baker should cut him a check if he ever writes another book. Caitlin says, I'm terrible with watching reviews. I save them and watch later after I read the books. Yeah. Alan, I went into the actual YouTube chat, not in StreamYard. Like, I went into the YouTube chat, and there's a little plus button if you're the creator, and you can actually do the poll that way. So pretty cool. You guys want another poll? Because I have ideas. I have ideas for polls. Let me load this up here and make sure it's not streaming in 1080p before it kills my bandwidth. But let me get caught up on chat first. Employee discount Barnes & Noble saved me a lot of money. Does that mean a Second Apocalypse has rocket launchers? Not quite. Not quite. Unfortunately. Yeah, the one thing people are talking about, Gurm finishing the books. The one thing about Gurm that you have to say is that he's working still. He might not be working on the things you want, but it's not he's just sitting around. He's a busybody. It would have to be a huge check to finish A Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah. More recommendations. Make sure you drop that down below in the comments after. People are telling me to keep faith in Gurm finishing. You know, who knows? I'm almost catching up. Bernej says, my toxic trait is thinking that Dream of Spring will come out within 3 years after Winds of Winter. I'm convinced that the third act will flow out, or am I just gaslighting myself? We all gaslight ourselves to a certain extent as the Song of Ice and Fire fans. What I will say is Winds of Winter is the harder book to write. Gurm does have the final paragraph of A Song of Ice and Fire written, supposedly, according to Daniel Abraham, and he knows it, which is wild. I had to find that interview somewhere. I saw it a long time ago. But anyways, I do believe that A Dream of Spring is the easier book to write, if it's any consolation. Have you been playing any video games lately? Yes, I lost an entire day to Retro Bowl. It's like a Tecmo Bowl clone that you can get like on any platform. It's a stupid 2D football game, and I cannot stop playing it. It's like RPG-esque in a way, but the gameplay is so simple yet deep somehow. So good. Pat asked me if I made any progress on King's Paradise. I'm only 2 chapters in, but at the beginning of the stream, you can go back and watch. I talked all about and how impressed I was with the first 2 chapters. Oh, Walter Frey is a good, hateable character to Song of Ice and Fire. My God. All the phrase, honestly. Oscar, you're the man. Alan, you love Littlefinger? Littlefinger's such a creep, though. I mean, I love him as a character. He's a great character, but like, God, he's creepy. Yeah, he does. Peter Baelish has the icky factor. Alan says he's rooting for Littlefinger. Dude, you're going to get lambasted. Beryl, thank you so much. Says this show is truly special, Jimmy. Thank you. Well, it only works because you all show it up. That's the only way it works. And I gotta tell you that I love the conversations. I love collabing with people. But the ease of this, of not having to schedule and stuff, and honestly, really just talk to you guys, this is really nice. I feel like there's a little bit more of a connection there, right? We're having a dialogue back and forth rather than it feeling like you're watching the dialogue between 2 people, and both are cool. You know, I want to keep doing them, but I'm glad that this is successful, and I'm really glad that the audience is enjoying it. Again, I really need to hear about after the fact. So if you're watching this after the fact and this isn't live and I'm talking to you, I need to hear feedback so I can figure out how to structure this a little bit more. Mark says, brother, can't wait to talk about these books. We got a lot to talk about with Second Apocalypse. People are wanting more polls. Okay. Tony Patrick says, I really hate Prince Arion from Duncan Aggie. Yes. I'm also receiving a question that, will you go through the whole Mivelle catalog? Yes, I will. I thought he was absolutely incredible. I think Alan's favorite character in Realm of the Elements would be Galen. The implications. Okay, we're going to do a poll here. And it's poll time. And this is one that I ran on my community tab when I first got to 1,000 subs, because it's one I always just really enjoy. Your weapon of choice. Let's go with sword, daggers, bow, staff. Oh, I can only have 4 options. No. All right, daggers are going away. Sword, bow, staff, mace. And we're going to keep and spear. Like, I really need to put spear on here. Listen, folks, I can only put 4 options because YouTube, apparently with their billions of dollars, can't add more. This is annoying. Like, as a software developer, this is a little bit annoying, right? Hey, Google, hire me. And also, sorry, please still hire me. I'm going to put this out here and let's see. I see people asking for the spear. You can write in. Feel free to put in the chat what you would pick. But go ahead and vote now. The poll is live. And the question of the night is your weapon of choice: sword, mace, bow, or staff, like a quarterstaff. That's one thing that Wheel of Time did have, was a quarterstaff. And I thought that was pretty dope, to be honest. One of the few things that I thought was cool. In reading, fantasy, or video games, I'm saying if someone takes you and they drop you in the middle of Genebacus, they drop you in the middle of Westeros, in the middle of Middle Earth, and it's time to go to war. The banners have been called. There is evil scoundering the land, or maybe you're wanting to do some of that evil, and it's time for you to make a choice. And you walk up to that blacksmith and you say, I'll take, insert your answer here. What are you going to make your legend with? I need to know. The Heron spear. Yeah, maybe I should have went spear over staff. Bow, because I don't want to be anywhere near actual battle. Yeah, you know what the hard thing about bows are? Is they're really hard to be good. One, be obviously accurate with and good with and efficient, but it's also really tough. Like, I don't know if you've ever done it. It's like a pretty surefire way of just tearing your rotator cuff. Alan said, no, Jimmy, I misclicked on staff. I hate staff. Oh, tremendous. Troll Sengar. What weapon would you like to see more of in fantasy, Jimmy? Mace. I love maces. I think they're so cool. You know, I think I've played around with a broom enough whenever I'm sweeping and get bored that I feel like I'd be okay with a quarterstaff, maybe. ADF says, if someone dropped me in any fantasy world, I'd just be killed. Bryce says, if you could adapt any fantasy outside of A Song of Ice and Fire, what would it be? Like any without any restrictions or anything, it'd probably be Malazan, because some of the stuff that happens in like the final 3 books, really the last 5 books, yeah, it would be so cinematic. Like, there's stuff that's written for cinema in there, I believe. It's just the budget would be insane. Battle Axe is getting a lot of love too. Jimmy, have you ever read Beowulf? I read it recently. Honestly, it was dope. I have not. Should I read the Tolkien one? I know that Philip is a big proponent of Beowulf, so maybe I should ask him exactly which one I should read. I think I asked him it on Chatting with Nuts once, but like everything, I forget. So I thought bow and staff were the same because of Napoleon Dynamite. You're now in timeout. I'm going to put user in timeout for that. I'm just kidding. Maybe like Leomon with the flail or oil. Oh, vegetable oil? Oh, man. Yes. Magical wand. Jimmy, will we get an updated bookshelf tour soon? Only if it's live. I will never do a bookshelf tour again where I have to like record and cut and edit. I'm going to be honest. I only did that because it was so requested. I did not have any fun filming that bookshelf tour. I hated it. I hated the whole thing. I was out of breath half the time because I'm like squatting down for the bottom shelves and I'm just breathing into the camera. The editing was awful. That video took so much effort and I don't enjoy it. Like, I easily, my least favorite video I've ever made was the bookshelf tour. And if I were to do it, I would do it live. Like I would literally just go live and walk you around my house. That's the only way I can do it. Do you have a list of ideas, concepts you want to read about, like a book from a POV of a rock, only better? I never want to read about a rock ever again. No, but like there are things that like I would like to read more of. Like I said, generational stuff would be really cool. And I always love a good slice of life. So, you know, a book I want to give another shot at that I DNF'd. And when I DNF'd it, I made sure everyone knew it wasn't because I thought it was terrible or anything. I just bounced off of it because my expectations were way out of line. I really want to try The Goblin Emperor again. Really bad. I saw some people talking about it today and I got a little bit of an itch and I'm like, you know what? I thought it was going to be like this high fantasy thing and it ended up being like a slice of life. And I just I didn't know that. So I just didn't want to read it. So I stopped. And I would like to try it again, I think. More cinematic, Malazan or Stormlight? Stormlight in a way, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Like Malazan would be closer to Band of Brothers, whereas Stormlight would be closer to something like Marvel or something. Or actually a lot of animes, to be honest with you. Like the long monologuing while in air and stuff, like that's so anime-ish. Not that that's bad, I'm just saying. Follow-up, which show would need a bigger budget? Malazan would need I don't know what constitutes raising the budget. Because if it's CGI, then I'd say Stormlight. I think Malazan, because you'd have to do so many different races and stuff, and like you would just need a sheer amount of actors and actresses. So I think Malazan probably. Plus, it's longer at the current time period. It's right now. It's longer. Oh, the Beowulf graphic novel. Cool. What was your main weapons or playstyle in Elden Ring? Strength, Chad, Giga Chad, Guts, Broadsword. Come get it. 99 strength. I can relate to the heavy breathing while filming. I'm pretty sure I was fried from support staff on the bookshelf tour video. Fired from support staff. Yes, Kels tried to help me film that. The bookshelf tour was literally the lowest point of my life. Not really, but lowest point of the channel. I was so mad. I just heard my wife laugh downstairs. Oh, Jimmy, I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this. Is there any update on your writing? Any plans on continuing with that or releasing stuff for our rabid consumption? No pressure either way. Yeah, we can talk about this. So I've said this time and time again, and you guys know it. Like I do stuff and I do it all. I do it 100%. Like I cannot not do something with all of my effort. And with writing, I wrote that short story and I got it edited and all this stuff. And there's still edits I need to make. So it's not done in my opinion. But I'll tell you the ideal situation. The ideal situation would be to read a little bit less, still have the same amount of content on the channel, because I do a lot of stuff. Like I don't just do reviews now. 99% of my content though, or I should say like 90% of my content, if you go back to the history of my channel, is still reviews. Like I've done reviews as my main content forever, and I will continue to do so. But I don't need to read a lot of books to do reviews. I just need to read a book and like dig into it to do reviews and to give you quality reviews and do these type of things. So maybe instead of reading like 5 or 6 books a month, I would like to read like 2 to 3, do really in-depth reviews, like a no spoiler review like I've been doing, and then a spoiler review as well, right? So if I do something like that and I cut back, I could actually see myself slicing out enough time in my month to do writing. And the most ideal thing would to be is to do some sort of serial short story series for you all, and maybe do it on a monthly basis, or maybe even a bi-monthly basis. And then I would try to have Alan do the audiobook for it. If somehow he could find time. I mean, we can't even get this guy to play book 2 of D&D. How am I going to get him to narrate an audiobook, right? But that would be like my ideal situation. I have no illusions that I am ready to do self-pub or to publish my work. And that's not a hating on anyone who does. More power to you. I think you should chase your dream. I think you should do the thing. And whenever you complete something and release it, like that's an achievement. Whether or not it stands the test of time and you know, the reviews and stuff, like it is something that most people in their lives will never do, is finish a story and put it out there. So you got to give people bravos for that. But I think for me, it's one of those things where I would want it to be serialized, released here, having people think about where to go, like where is it going. But that's a pretty hard thing to do. Like, how do you pace something like that? It's like almost an entirely different thing than writing a novel. So I feel like I have to think more about that idea. And I don't think it's the next project. I think the next project has to be a short story, novella, something like that. I don't think I'm ready to write a novel either. So I think I'd like to stick to a short story, that type of deal. And that is the ideal situation, is to give you all something as my audience that is serialized. Could be a lot of fun. I've even thought about doing like something like a seasons. You know what I mean? Like seasons of writing. Be kind of cool. Yes, Jennifer, say it with your chest. Louder for the people in the back, all those good phrases. Whatever happened to dwarves in modern fantasy? And where are the giants? Where are they? I don't see them. More dwarves. And more giants, please. Giants are definitely more prevalent than dwarves nowadays, though. Ooh, Rob Paul says generational stuff. Have you tried Feist? I have not, but I will. I will. I really want to try the Emperor trilogy or whatever it is with Janie Warts, but I decided to shelve it this year since I was doing Janie Warts' other longer series. Top 3 characters of Song of Ice Fire would be Tyrion, Jon Snow, Jaime in that order. Tyrion, Jaime, Arya Hota, just to tilt you in chat. Oh yeah, I forgot about the poll. All right, we got about the same amount of votes as last time, so let's see what we're dealing with, and we're going to end the poll. All right, the weapon of choice is easily sword, coming in first place with 44% of the vote. We have bow at 27%, staff right behind that at 16%, and mace at 11%. I really thought mace would be higher. I thought there'd be some sword and board people in here, but I guess not. It's unfortunate. Dude, cruising around with the bridge burners like a band of brothers would feel so dope. I've always said Malazan feels like the band of brothers of fantasy, you know. Birthday book haul vid this year? Probably not. I'm buying less and less books because I moved into a house that has a library and it's full. So that's a problem. Maybe I'll do an unboxing of my Subterranean editions. I got the Subterranean edition for Game of Thrones and the Clash of Kings, and they're like my prized possessions. So I only went with mace because I already had a spin some point, I assume. Oh, look at this. So what are we getting to unbox via the Dance with Dragon Folio Society editions? I did just order the Dance with Dragons Folio edition that just released, which means all my folios over here will be incomplete but complete, right? Everything that's been published I'll have in folio. I need to probably do an unboxing for that. I think you guys would like that. So maybe I'll do that, and I'll throw in the sub presses and just do like a rare A Song of Ice and Fire editions unboxing. Are you doing any horror books for October? Yeah, I did it, and I talked about also doing Dark Matter as well. Alan says, Jimmy, booktube D&D takes so much time. I know, but can you imagine? Like, I don't think you realize the level of success that we'll have and how much fun we would have. Like, in fact, I'm worried because I think it would be peak. I think we would never top it ever again. I really don't. Serial short stories sound like such a good idea. Yeah, it's just if I can write them well enough. Yeah, fun fact, a lot of science fiction, fantasy, horror used to be published serially in magazines. Jimmy returning to the genre's roots. Yeah, I know Asimov did that, and that was kind of like the idea, is like copying something like that. I mean, not copying, but that format, right? Dude, dwarves rule. If you have a problem with dwarves, you got a problem with me, okay? And you don't want no problems with me. Tanner says the giants are in Discord. They sure are. RJ Reeds is the biggest giant I know. And also tall guy Reeds. He's like 6'8". Crazy. The Bee's Knees says all of my favorite series at the moment are serialized on Royal Road, and then I try to support them on Patreon and get those early chapters. Interesting. So this is like a whole thing, huh? I know that Sword of Kaigen author ML Wang, is that right? Let me look it up. Sword of Kaigen. I love that book, and yeah, ML Wang that is supposedly going to do a serialized Patreon story, and I would like to sign up for that because I really enjoy her work, or at least I enjoyed Sword of Kaigen. Curious Cretin says, have you completed Blood Meridian? No, not yet. I have not started it. I'm kind of waiting because I know it's going to be dense. I'm waiting for it to be in the mood. What? You have a library, Jimmy? Do you have a tour yet? I do not, but if you go look at some of my reviews from like maybe a month to 2 months ago before I switched to this setup, I was down in there. They're white shelves and they're like, I don't know, 15 feet tall or something. And they wrap around a room with a fireplace. It's pretty cool. You need to get rid of books you're not going to read again or else you'll never have enough room. Yeah, I'm aware. You should really film your entire updated Song of Ice and Fire collection. Maybe I will do that. Actually, why not do another poll? Last one for the night, I promise. Which should I do? Unboxing of, let's see if I can spell unboxing. unboxing of new editions for Game of Thrones or a Song of Ice and Fire collection tour. All right, vote on that, and whatever wins, I'll do. Colton says, I imagine all the people who voted for Bo crying every time fantasy characters throwing shade at archers for not fighting face to face, like the single tear from that old commercial. Jesus. Thank you, Tanner. I appreciate you. Love you, buddy. I'm waiting for my husband to get me book 4 of A Song of Ice and Fire in the Folio Society editions. Didn't know book 5 is getting released. Yeah, it literally got released this week, Jolene. I ordered it the day it came up and it already shipped. But it's coming from the UK, so it'll probably take a couple weeks. Oh, what if we did invite Esselmont or Erickson to be a guest DM on an episode of BookTube D&D? That would be insane. Fantasy Fanatic said, I'm waiting for Malazan to be translated in French, so I have the excuse to kick it down the road. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, okay. So it looks like Emma Wang has been releasing stories on her Patreon in a serialized fashion already. That's really cool. That doesn't have to be the last poll. Polls are fun. Well, I'll tell you what. Next time I come in, because I'd never used it before, the next time I do Nuts After Dark, Chatting with Nuts edition, I will do the polls, and I'll actually have them constructed in a way where we like flow through the topics, and maybe the polls will like link to one another. I have some pretty cool ideas for that. So this is just one of these things that I haven't used before. So it's very experimental. This whole stream is experimental, to be honest with you. Rob Paul says, I don't care about A Song of Ice and Fire. Sorry, Jimmy. It's all good, dude. I am actually really excited the fact that I have Bend the Knee. That's another project that I'm working on now because I don't want to annoy people with how much I talk about it because I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. But at Bend the Knee, like if you're tuning into that, like you clearly like A Song of Ice and Fire, so I can just go off. Like I can just do my thing. So I want to be the bard, dude. You'd make a pretty metal bard, Mark. Alan says, Jimmy, I am the DM. Well, I mean, we've been waiting a year and a half. I don't know. I might get a DM off Fiverr. Whoa, what if Erickson comes in and role plays Krupp? I'll be down. Connor, you bring up something very, very interesting. So Connor M says, have you heard of The Wandering Inn, a serialized novel that is massive? Patrick mentioned it in his longest series video. Yeah, this is the biggest fantasy series of all time, and it's only started at like 2019 or something. I am very curious about this series, and I want to read it. You know, the number one thing keeping me from it, other than the fact that I'm like a little sus about the quality of it, is I hate reading off my computer. I work all day coding, looking at text on my computer. My eyes can't stand it. So that is the number one thing that is keeping me from reading The Wandering Inn. Does anybody know if there are physical prints of any of The Wandering Inn? Let me know in chat, please. Let's check on that good old poll. How's it doing? Interesting. Dude, if I do a Song of Ice and Fire collection tour, I have 6 pairs of Adidas Ultra Boost special edition Game of Thrones. I'm not much of a sneakerhead, but I went out and collected all of those. So I have a lot of stuff that aren't books that would have to go into the collection. Wait, what did I do? Derry, notice you skipped over your comment. Wait, where? I'm sorry that I skipped the comment. And Derry, I have a ton of love for you. Get Mark to start Malazan. I think he attempted it, didn't he? I think. Alan is saying, Jimmy. Oh, Wandering It is on Kindle. Okay, thank you. And it's on Audible? Wait, what? Yeah, reading off the computer is absolutely miserable. The first collection on audio from for The Wandering Inn is 45 hours. Is the audiobook good? Who's the narrator? M says, Jimmy, just throw it up on VS Coder and IntelliJ Dark theme and you'll feel right at home. My Cobalt 2 theme in VS Code. Very suspicious to be that long and to have produced so fast. Yeah, I'm not going to be going into it in the Wandering In thinking that it's going to be like high literature, but it could still be a great story. Like that is possible. One of my favorite things I got to ask Erickson when I was on Steve Talks Books on one of his Friday conversations, and Erickson was there. And I said, do you think there's a difference between great writers and great storytellers? And like, do you have to be a great writer to be a great storyteller? And he said, many of the best storytellers in the world have not been writers. The guy sitting next to you at the bar, that kind of deal, right? Guy sitting next to you on a bus or a bench. And like many of those people, they just have some sort of quality as storytellers. And I think that can happen in authors as well, like for authors. So I'm willing to give Wandering In a chance. I don't know when we are just teasing Jimmy. I'm glad. Jimmy, weird cue, but any advice for potential comp sci majors? Still not sure if I'll pursue programming, but I might. I think I'm good at it. It seems like a reliable career. I 100% encourage you to go into the dev field because, yeah, it's one of the best jobs in the world, in my opinion. I don't have any advice for the comp sci majors because I didn't go to college. Well, I went to college. I never finished, and I never went for comp sci. So I have no comp sci other than 101 classes underneath my belt. I went for accounting and then physics, and never got either of those degrees. So I am a software web developer, whatever, front-end engineer, and I do not have a traditional college education. I just taught myself, which is always an option. But I tell people, if you can go to college for it, do it, because getting in the door is a lot easier when you have that little piece of paper. So yeah, see, Slowly Red has read Gardens of the Moon. I thought so. I think Slowly Red would love Dead House Gates. It's tremendous. Some of the Game of Thrones beers are pretty good. Yeah, so is the Scotch. It's very, very good. Narrator is Pee Wee Herman for Wandering. Absolutely ridiculous. Haven't started yet, but the reviews say I've seen say the audio is amazing, except for the subpar writing at the start of the series, which I heard does improve later on, as it usually does for a lot of people. I'm reading Malazan, but struggling a bit. Do want to continue at book 3 at the moment. Thinking of switching to Baker's Prince of Nothing for now and pausing Malazan might be a stupid idea. No, go with what you feel. Writing and storytelling are related, but different skills and talents. I agree, Rob, 100%. So are there people who are great storytellers on paper, but orally terrible? Absolutely. Daniel says, I'm a software engineer too. My advice, do personal projects and get used to learning on your own. They will really help you with job apps. Yeah, even if you go down the college route, you still need a portfolio in today's age. And well, I shouldn't say you need it, but it definitely helps. And I think just building things is the best experience you can get. Alan has another question. He says, Jimmy, any advice for teachers with a working knowledge of ancient history and looking for your career changes? I would definitely suggest, dealing crack cocaine. I'm kidding. I would not suggest doing that. But Alan, in your area, I'm sure like drug dealing is probably pretty big. So, for the tourists and stuff. So, it's never too late for a career switch, my friend. The Targaryen wine for House of the Dragon is extraordinarily mid. Yeah, audiobooks are weird, right? Because you only use that credit. Like I actually will usually buy a audiobook if it's less than like $13 around what I pay for credits. Like if the audiobook is less than what a credit technically cost, I will absolutely not spend the credit on it. I'm really weird about it. If I have the extra money, right? Hayden says, Jimmy, how do you choose when to pursue a new series when book 1 is usually not the defining book of a series? I love beginnings, so I don't necessarily care if a book 1 is super weak. Like a lot of people say the first book in The Dagger and the Coin is really, really bad or slow, and I think it's actually awesome. Like I didn't struggle with it all. And there's people who love the series that struggle with book 1. I never struggled with it. I enjoyed it. Same thing with Gardens of the Moon. Like a lot of people didn't like Gardens of the Moon. I liked it plenty. So Jimmy, since you like D&D, check out the Pathfinder games. New one just came out. Oh, yeah, Kingmaker or whatever it might have been. I'm waiting for it to come out on PS5. I think it comes out later next year. They delayed it, unfortunately. Like every game gets delayed nowadays. Yes, methamphetamines. Yep, rip. Still waiting on Alan's anti-Andy Smith smear video. It would be funny if Alan shot like a political type smear campaign on him just because Andy's into politics. I would find that funny. Tony Patrick says, I'm writing a series of fantasy novels inspired by Greek mythology. Eventually, they will form one big novel, but I don't know if I should self-publish them one at a time or in one big books once they're done. I think doing multiple books is the better way, but I don't. You should probably ask someone that's in the industry, but that's just my gut. My gut's telling me that it's better to do the series. Caitlin, thanks for stopping in. I appreciate you. Audible hack. Buy the Kindle when it's cheap and then get the Whisper Sync deal for Audible like $7. Yep. I do that when I can. Yeah, I'm a book one person for sure. M says, you can specialize nowadays. You can do security, infrastructure, data engineering, machine learning, where you will need to understand concepts rather than the portfolio. Exactly what Jimmy was saying. Yeah, for all the aspiring developers in the audience, that is definitely my advice. Well, folks, it's been about 2.5 hours. If I'm not careful, I'll be on here all night. I will do one last poll, and it's because Colton put it up here, and I actually think it's a really, really good idea. So we're going to do this poll. The next time we do Chatting with Nuts After Dark, we will be doing a lot more of these polls, and they're going to have a theme. So wait, no way. Oh, I forgot. I got to end the last one. So the last poll ended, and it says, what should I do? A Song of Ice and Fire collection tour was at 59%. Unboxing of the new editions for Game of Thrones is 40%. The good news is that you're going to see the new editions in the collection. It's just the video is going to be really long, and it's also going to have sneakers, wines, beers, all other kinds of stuff. So at some point I will do that. I will make a video of all of my memorabilia, and then people will judge me for being a consumer, and that's fine. Okay, pick one. So we're going to do a wizard, a fighter, a rogue, and a paladin. And the poll's up. Let me see what your answers are. I'm going to give this probably about 5 minutes for this poll, and we'll see who wins. And it's going to be fun. Like I said, next time we do Chatting with Nuts After Dark, I'm going to have a little bit more of a theme with the polls, and I think that it could lead to some really cool discussion. So this will be something that will be really, really fun to play around with. And also, it just has my wheels turning about some of the other ideas that I've been having about some live stream shows that I want to try out. So this is really cool. Wish it was built in the StreamYard, though. It's a little bit of a bummer. But I guess I'll talk about like some stuff that I'm going to be reading. So obviously I'm reading Kings of Paradise. I'm going to finish it this weekend. I've kind of slowed down in the second half because I just got really busy at work and I started playing Retro Bowl, which is a problem. But I'll finish it by Sunday. I'm going to be reading Kings of Paradise. And then after that, I don't know what I'm going to read. It's going to be like The Company, maybe by KJ Parker. Between Two Fires is also up there. I really want to read Dark Matter. And Blood Rights. I'm reading Blood Rights for sure this month. Blood Rights is actually the number one priority. After I finish it, I'm going to start it on audio as I'm reading Kings of Paradise with my eyeballs. And from there, we'll see where I go. And I will definitely also probably try to read The Exorcist as well. I know, Kev, you're saying to skip Between Two Fires, but what the premise is everything that I love. So I really feel like it would be a really big hit with me, to be honest with you. So Vimes is a dual class paladin rogue. Get some Gemmel in. I mean, I need to buy more of his books to be here, I think, for me to read them. Yeah, Mark, I know you like Between Two Fires, and so does Amanda. I think it'll be a very, very big hit for me. All right, let's see where this poll is at. The most we got on votes for a poll was 84 votes. We're at 69 now, giggity. And I guess we'll see. I'll give it like another minute or two. I was going to do 5, but I don't think that it's going to increase any of the participation. And for those listening after the fact, the polls are a good reason to attend live if you're able. More KJ Parker love. I really do need to read KJ Parker before Alan loses it on me. My biggest thing is I'm trying to decide which one I want to start first between the Long Price Quartet and Black Company. And I think I'm going to start Black Company first, much to Alan's demise, because I am missing the Malazan Marines a lot. And I know Black Company had a lot of heavy inspiration from that. I know they're not the same, and we shouldn't go into them with the expectations of it being Malazan, but I definitely feel like Black Company is going to scratch an itch that I have right now. So, and also going to be chatting the second Apocalypse tomorrow, which is excellent. So, all right, I'm going to end the poll now. And let's see. All right. Wizard wins at 44%. Rogue comes in second at 27%, which I'm kind of shocked by. Paladin at 16% and Fighter at 12%. So I put Fighter and Barbarian pretty close together, and I'm a big dumb strength nerd. So I would absolutely be doing that. I think I'd be the Fighter, even though that was the came in last place. Wizard, Rogue, Paladin, and then Fighter. Paladin, all you self-righteous. No, I'm just kidding. I get it. All right, everyone. It's been wonderful. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope Nuts After Dark, Chatting with Nuts, was a success. As far as viewers go, this has been insanely popular, which is great. And then if you're watching after the fact, please drop me a comment down below and let me know how the experience was for you listening to it after the fact. I know conversations have a little bit of a more linear fashion that are generally, they're still random, but they have a good flow to them. So I want to know what the people after the fact also think. So thank you all so much for being here. Drop a like on the video so people can find it after the fact. And we will definitely do this again real soon. And I'll be mixing these into the regular rotation for Chatting with Nuts After Dark. But I hope you all will have a great weekend. And thank you so much for being here. You guys are all wonderful. I love you so very much. And until I see you next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always keep turning the page.